The smile on Liu Qingxian's face slowly faded, her heart growing heavy as if filled with lead. In this battle, anyone could fall. She could, and so could Fang Chen. She suddenly extended her arms, tightly embracing Fang Chen, and whispered, "You too, Zayofan." That voice was full of reluctance, clearly savoring the final warmth before the cataclysm. The air was thick with the sentiment of parting. Moved, Fang Chen lowered his head and deeply kissed her crimson lips. But just then, some things were utterly tactless. Fang Chen suddenly felt something tug at his trouser leg. Looking down, he saw a small beast, infant-like in appearance, with whiskers and a body covered in green scales, gazing up at him. Who else could it be but that little rebel? The little creature rubbed its two paws together and spoke in a milky voice. "Big brother, could you spare me a bit of your precious treasure too?" Apparently, having seen Fang Chen hand out rich treasures, one after another, from a distance, it had been itching to get some, and had scampered over to beg. Having his good moment rudely interrupted, Fang Chen instantly flared up and kicked it away. He snarled, "Stop hanging around with Liang Feiyan." The little rebel was sent tumbling several times from that kick, barely stabilizing itself, and asked blankly, "What's wrong with Brother Liang?" Fang Chen gave a heavy snort through his nostrils, finding the little rebel more and more displeasing to the eye. Suddenly, a thought struck him. There was still an important matter that needed someone in charge. So he flipped his palm and produced 3 oval eggs. They were unmistakably the eggs of shadow black snakes. Once hatched, they could yield a deadly poison lethal to the ancient giants. However, hatching these venomous snakes was no small danger itself. Fang Chen didn't trust anyone else with them. But handing them to the little rebel, that was just perfect. That rebellious little brat, even if it were poisoned to death, he wouldn't feel a shred of heartache. His eyes darted around slyly, and he cleared his throat, leaning closer. "Little rebel, I have an extremely important mission, and only you can do it. These are 3 eggs of divine beasts. Once successfully hatched, they will become a devastating weapon that can annihilate the ancient giants. I can't trust anyone else with this task. After much thought, you're the only one with outstanding ability. Who else but you?" The little rebel was stunned. What the hell? Fang Chen was actually praising it, saying it had outstanding ability. These words involuntarily made it puff out its chest with pride, thinking, "I, the rebel, have finally risen up today." But when it looked at the so-called divine beast eggs, the 2 whiskers beside its mouth twitched, and it asked suspiciously, "These are snake eggs, right? The snakes won't bite me once they're hatched, will they?" Fang Chen's face stiffened slightly. He had almost forgotten. This little rebel was a descendant of a true spirit, and had an exceptionally keen sense for demonic beings. His expression unchanged, he said with a calm smile, "This poison is only lethal to ancient giants. It's not very toxic to other living beings. At most, being bitten will just cause a bump." After saying that, he silently added in his mind, "A bump that swells up like a mountain." The little Killin didn't suspect a thing. The thought of 3 little snakes being a weapon to destroy ancient giants made its eyes light up instantly. This was a life-saving treasure. What was there to hesitate about? It immediately grinned and extended its 2 tiny paws, carefully taking the 3 snake eggs from Fang Chen's hands, speaking in a milky voice. "Big brother is so kind." Fang Chen's smile was incredibly warm. He waved his hand. Go on, hatch them quickly." The little rebel raised a paw and thumped its chest loudly, declaring, "Rest assured, big brother, when it comes to hatching eggs, I'm a pro." Then, beaming with joy, it cradled the snake eggs and ran off in a flash. Just then, the pavilion master had already set up 3 array plates. His figure swept over and asked, "Are all matters properly settled?" Fang Chen didn't mention the matter of Yeyu, only nodding. "All settled. Everything is ready. We just await arrangements from the Imperial Observatory." Whether the 3 divine sects and 7 great orders, or the various smaller sects, all must ultimately accept the unified command of the Imperial Observatory. Only by gathering strength can they engage the descending ancient giants in a grand battle. If everyone fights on their own, they'll only be picked off one by the swarming ancient giants. The pavilion master drew a deep breath and said gravely, "The Heavenly Secrets Pavilion is also ready. Outside we have 3 defensive array plates. Inside there are the heart, devouring black insects given by the myriad force demon monarch. If the battle turns unfavorable, we can withdraw to the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion and hold out for a while." He paused, then sighed. "It's a pity that the ice, via demon monarch, has been completely out of touch since leaving, or our defenses would be even stronger." Hearing the ice, fire, demon monarch mentioned, Fang Chen frowned. The last time he had met him was inside a state-level teleportation array. They were ambushed by the Asura Saint Sun, and the three of them were scattered. Fang Chen and Venerable Lianjing fell into the primordial unity state, while the ice fire demon monarch vanished without a trace ever since. No one knew whether he had fallen into the void, survived but chose not to return to the Grand Taicang State. I hope he is safe. Fang Chen sighed quietly. Just then, a gentle, smiling voice floated from afar, with the heavenly secrets pavilion mind preparing 2 extra cave abodes. Everyone looked up to see a drifting cloud rapidly approaching from the horizon. Standing on the cloud was a matchless couple, a perfect pair, none other than Feyin and Yue. When Fang Chen's gaze fell on Yue, his pupils imperceptibly contracted. He had once asked Hongxiu what kind of Asura could charm a high monk into betraying the Buddhist sect. Hongxiu told him it was the seductive Enchantress Asura lineage. Moreover, the higher the cultivation of the seductive Enchantress clan, the purer and more innocent their appearance, devoid of any seductive manner. He could not see through Yu Wei's cultivation at all. It was truly unfathomable. From Feyin's words, it seemed they had finished traveling the 9 states, and no longer planned to return to the White Horse Temple, intending to settle down here at the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion. Fang Chen, of course, could not have been more eager. Feyin himself was a late, nascent soul-stage Vajra, and Yue was an even more mysterious powerhouse. How could he refuse? His eyes twinkling, he said with a beaming smile, "I'm terribly sorry, but there's only one room left." Feyin's smile stiffened. He turned to Yue, laughing awkwardly, seeking her opinion. Yue's cheeks reddened. She shot Fang Chen an embarrassed, annoyed glare and whispered, "He really is your good brother." Hesitating a moment, she withdrew her gaze and said softly, "You decide." Feyin was instantly overjoyed, and secretly gave Fang Chen a thumbs up. It clearly meant, "You really understand me, brother." He immediately said, with a straight face, "Since there's only one room left, we'll just have to make do." With that, he flew down, came closer to scrutinize Fang Chen closely, and showed a look of surprise. He cupped his hands in a congratulatory gesture, saying, "Congratulations, Brother Fang, for stepping onto your own Tao." Yue also focused her gaze, sensed briefly, and revealed an equally astonished expression. "A flawless Tao, no less. You're quite ambitious. Never heard of anyone in the Central Plains entering godhood through this path before." She paused, then added, "But this Tao is indeed domineering. If you were to achieve godhood, the might of your domain would likely be unmatched in the Central Plains." Fang Chen was also secretly observing Feyin. He couldn't tell if Yue had helped to veil it, but he utterly failed to see through Feyin's current realm. But this precisely indicated that Feyin's strength had undergone an earth-shaking transformation. Otherwise, why would Yue need to veil it? The smile on Fang Chen's face deepened, and he warmly said, "You must be tired after touring the 9 states. I'll take you to your cave abode to rest right away." Feyin instead smiled and took out 2 jade boxes from his sleeve, saying, "When I was traveling through the primordial unity state, the Star Abyss Exalted entrusted me to be sure to deliver this to you." He first handed over 1 jade box. Fang Chen was taken aback. He received and opened it, and couldn't help but be moved. Inside were 5 purple wish papers. On the eve of the ancient giant cataclysm, every single wish paper was immensely precious. Even the Cloud Sea Academy barely had enough for its own use. Yet the Star Abyss Exalted had specially set aside 5 extra sheets to give to him. His father-in-law truly treated him beyond reproach. Perhaps he hoped that by extending such goodwill, Fang Chen would treat his daughter, Zhenyan, even better. "The Star Abyss Exalted asked me to convey 2 words to you," Feyin said slowly. "Take care." Fang Chen's heart grew slightly heavy again, and he murmured the same to him. He silently resolved that once this cataclysm had passed, he would surely bring Zhenyan and the Star Abyss Exalted together. At the very least, let them, father and daughter, have a proper conversation at last. He had always felt that someone like the great venerable Xingyuan, brimming with majestic righteousness, would never do something as despicable as taking a new wife while his first wife's bones were still warm. There must be some unbearable secret hidden within. Final item is a fortuitous opportunity I chanced upon while touring the Holy Spirit province. Feyin handed over the 2nd jade box as well. "I thought it might be useful to you, so I brought it back." Fang Chen took the jade box, and his gaze was instantly shaken with shock. Inside the box lay a cluster of ochre, yellow radiance, silently emitting powerful fluctuations of origin energy. His Adam's apple bobbed heavily, his voice quivering slightly. Could this be? Feyin chuckled softly. "The Earth origin. I hope it will be of use to you." Fang Chen could no longer contain his joy. Clutching the jade box tightly, he exclaimed, "Many thanks, Brother Fa Yin." The 5 forces of the void flow: heaven, thunder, wind, fire, and earth. He had already cultivated the origins of thunder, wind, and fire. Only the origins of heaven and earth still eluded him, lacking the karmic opportunity. Now, this earth origin was precisely what he had long yearned for in his dreams. At this moment, Fang Chen lacked only the so-called heaven origin to gather all 5 forces of the void flow. If he could cultivate all 5 forces to the state of great perfection, he would achieve the supreme realm described in the 5 forces of the void flow, with the 5 forces perfected, unmatched under heaven, invincible unless a saint descends. Seeing this, the pavilion master of Heavenly Secrets Pavilion also felt sincere joy for Fang Chen. Smiling, he said, "Fang Chen, go cultivate in peace. I will escort them into the cave dwelling." Fang Chen nodded and promptly bid farewell to Liu Qingxian. Turning around, he swiftly entered the cave dwelling. With a grand sweep of his sleeve, he simultaneously summoned a multitude of thunderous energies and that dense sphere of earth origin. Only 2 days remained until the descent of the ancient giants. But the final day would inevitably be under the unified direction of the Imperial Observatory. This meant that the time he could truly seize for himself was nothing more than this single, fleeting day. Just as he closed his eyes, ready to seize every precious second for focused cultivation, a long, absent, crisp sound suddenly rang out from within his robes. It was the moon mirror. Fang Chen's heart stirred. He already guessed who had sent a message at such a critical juncture. Without hesitation, he abandoned the thought of cultivation and hurriedly retrieved the moon mirror. He fixed his gaze upon the smooth mirror surface, and a familiar name starkly came into view. Glasses. It was Red Sleeve from the heavenly realm, and the words she spoke instantly made Fang Chen's heart sink with immense gravity. Red Sleeve's message came through the moon mirror. "Glasses, the great hunt of the heavenly realm is over. Now it's your Middle Earth's turn. May the heavens above have mercy upon you." Even through this thin moon mirror, Fang Chen could clearly feel the thick, congealed sorrow, fury, and despair in Red Sleeve's voice. During this month of the Great Hunt, what kind of unspeakably cruel catastrophe had the Ashura tribe stockades of the heavenly realm suffered? And now, what was the situation there? Fang Chen's finger lightly rested on the moon mirror, yet for a long time he did not dare to ask. After a long while, he drew a deep breath, mustered his courage, and typed a reply. With slightly trembling fingers, he wrote, "Name Seeker, how are the casualties among the various Ashura stockades?" After the message was sent, a long time passed before the moon mirror finally responded. Red Sleeve's reply was but a single short sentence. "Glasses, thank you for preserving the final sparks of hope for the Ashura tribes." Fang Chen's pupils abruptly contracted. Could this sentence mean that the Ashura tribes of the heavenly realm were already nearly extinct? He forcefully suppressed the horror in his heart, and with trembling fingers wrote once more, "Name Seeker, so devastatingly cruel." He had always believed that the ancient giants possessed the power to annihilate all Ashura tribes. But if they completely exterminated them, what would the ancient giants eat during the next great hunt? According to the eternal and unchanging convention, the ancient giants would usually leave a tiny spark of reproduction in each stockade, then grant them a century of rest and recovery. This time, why were they so utterly resolute, seeking to exterminate everything? Red Sleeve's response came through coldly. "Glasses, aside from 9 large Ashura tribes, the rest of the stockades have been reduced to scattered bones. Nothing remains." Fang Chen held the moon mirror, completely dumbfounded for a long time. Reduced to scattered bones, nothing remains 4 light words, but what kind of harrowing, tragic scenes did they describe? He had once witnessed, through the perspective of a heaven's eye Ashura, the sight of ancient giants devouring an entire stockade alive. That was merely the tip of the iceberg countless annihilated stockades. Red Sleeve sent another message. "Glasses, the ancient giants have gone mad. They are destroying everything without regard for consequences. So it is for the Ashura stockades, and your Middle Earth will absolutely face the same fate." Fang Chen's gaze instantly became extremely solemn. What kind of upheaval had occurred to make the ancient giants break a rule that had persisted for 10,000 years? Since they had ruthlessly exterminated the Ashura stockades, how would they treat Middle Earth? Fang Chen suddenly realized a terrifying truth he had long overlooked. He immediately stretched out his finger and wrote on the moon mirror, "Name Seeker, is it possible that we of Middle Earth, just like your Ashura stockades, are actually prey writhed by the ancient giants?" Red Sleeve's response carried a trace of bitter laughter. Glasses, you only realize this now. The descent of the ancient giants, once every 1,000 years. How is it any different from the Great Hunt, once every century? Glasses, these are all calamities deliberately orchestrated. Fang Chen's body jolted violently, his eyes briefly losing focus. He had long felt that the 1,000-year interval between each calamity was far too deliberate. So it turned out that behind all this, there truly was a hand that shrouded the heavens, manipulating events from behind the scenes. The only difference was that to the ancient giants, the Ashura stockades were nothing more than a casual snack, whereas their Middle-earth was the true gluttonous grand feast. Moreover, over the past 10,000 years, in the several previous calamities, it was not always that Middle-earth prevailed. The reason Middle-earth has survived till now is most likely because the ancient giants deliberately left sparks behind, allowing Middle-earth to barely subsist, so that the next Hunt would be even more bountiful. However, this time, an earth-shattering upheaval must have occurred among the ancient giants. This upheaval drove them to make the final resolution to end it all. If Middle-earth loses this time, it will be complete and utter oblivion, with no day of recovery ever again. Fang Chen took a deep breath, the oppressive feeling nearly suffocating him. He wrote, "Nameseeker, what is your situation now?" Red Sleeve remained silent for a long time before responding wistfully. Glasses, a fish in a dried-up mud pond. What else can it do but wait to die? Fang Chen instantly understood her predicament. Since the ancient giants had already adopted an extermination policy against the stockades, how could the remaining 9 great stockades, trapped in dire straits, keep themselves safe? Once the ancient giants annihilate Middle-earth, they will turn their forces around and concentrate their power to wipe out the 9 stockades completely. Fang Chen wrote swiftly, "Nameseeker, hold on." Red Sleeve's response was resolute. "Glasses, I will also keep my promise and go to the Black Sun Royal Court to firmly stall that 5-star giant king for you. Glasses, if you and Middle-earth win, the ancient giants will surely be greatly weakened, and our 9 stockades will still have a sliver of hope for survival. This much I can still understand." Fang Chen breathed a slight sigh of relief. Indeed, when speaking with clever people, no superfluous words were necessary. He wrote solemnly, "Nameseeker, I entrust this to you. We of Middle-earth will definitely fight with all our might." Red Sleeve's tone grew even more serious. "Glasses, you'd best hold nothing back. Otherwise, the millions of annihilated Ashura stockades in the heavenly realm will be the truest depiction of what awaits Middle-earth. Glasses, also, there is one more matter I must remind you of. Do you recall the Central Tribe Army I mentioned before?" Fang Chen's brows furrowed deeply, and he immediately wrote, "Nameseeker, I remember." That day, Red Sleeve had said that she received news that the Central Tribe had secretly mobilized a large army. At that time, Red Sleeve speculated that this army was most likely targeting her stockade or Taicang Grand State. Red Sleeve's next message arrived. "Glasses, this army did not attack our stockade." "Glasses, you people of Taicang Grand State, you had better watch out for yourselves." Fang Chen's pupils violently quaked at that moment. If Red Sleeve's initial speculation was correct, then that mysterious Central Tribe Army was now heading straight for Taicang Grand State. What they faced this time was not only the world, destroying ancient giants of the Black Sun Royal Court. There's actually this extremely mysterious Central Tribe Army. Fang Chen pressed his forehead. An overwhelming exhaustion instantly washed over his entire body. The Black Sun Royal Court originally had nearly 10 giant kings. Among them, one was a terrifyingly powerful 5-star giant king. And the number of ordinary ancient giants was exactly twice the number of cultivators above the mid-nascent soul stage in the Taicang Grand State. This was already a desperate battle with a great disparity in strength. If the enemy also brought a Central Tribe Army with combat power even more terrifying than the Black Sun Royal Court, Fang Chen truly couldn't imagine how the Taicang Grand State could win this hopeless battle. He quietly put away the moon mirror, his mood instantly plummeting to rock bottom, extremely heavy. But at that moment, he heard the bustling footsteps of the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion members outside his cave dwelling, and his previously scattered gaze refocused. Fang Chen heavily punched his own leg, a fierce battle intent erupting from his eyes, and he shouted sternly, "Let them come." Who's afraid of whom? As soon as the words left his mouth, he raised his hand and grabbed the air, drawing all the suspended thunder power before him into his body. In that moment, the heavenly abyss heart was completely filled. This meant he had obtained a heaven-defying trump card to briefly step into the deity transformation stage once more. Immediately after, he seized the cluster of Earth origin, closed his eyes, and began silently comprehending the natural laws contained within. The scene shifts. Let's talk about the Shingling Prefecture. In a floating, exquisitely carved palace, filled with the fragrance of flowers and the chirping of birds, Ice Hot Venerable sat on a swing, surrounded by clusters of flowers, holding the moon mirror. Her gentle, jade-like face bore an indescribably serious expression. She murmured to herself, no wonder the Grand Libationer laid out plans early, exhausting his efforts to nurture the true demon of world annihilation. So he had long foreseen that this would be the last descent of the ancient giants, and they would no longer leave any chance for the Central Plains to propagate. But can the Central Plains really survive this time? After pondering for a long while, she once again looked through the chat logs between Fang Chen and Hongxiu, recorded in hellish script. When her gaze fell upon the name, Pick a Good Name, her eyes became extremely complicated. Iceheart Venerable shook her head and sighed softly. The most difficult place is still the Taicang Great State. Barring any accidents, the Taicang Great State will be the first place to be annihilated. Fang Chen has been running around risking his life, exhausting his mind to prepare for resistance against the ancient giants. In the end, I'm afraid it will only be a drop in the bucket, unable to change the slightest bit of the doomed outcome. At this moment, she actually felt some sympathy for Fang Chen. Having striven with everything, what he gets in the end seems to be all kinds of mockery from fate. After thinking for a moment, she gritted her teeth slightly, took out her moon mirror, and personally sent a message. Blooming Wealth. Pick a good name. Send someone to the Celestial Observatory Teleportation Array. I'm sending an item. After writing, she immediately ordered, Aluo, go personally to the Celestial Observatory and transmit this item over. With that, she took out a tattered cloth scrap, which emitted a terrifying divine might that made countless beings unable to resist kneeling in worship. If Fang Chen were here right now, he would definitely recognize it at a glance. This was exactly the mysterious cloth scrap that the Black Dragon Venerable had fiercely thrown that day, crushing the Central Plains barrier and creating a long void rift. On the cloth scrap, that bloody word, which even the Venerable could not bear to look upon, had mysteriously vanished, leaving only a faint, indistinct mark, through which one could barely make out that a character had once been imprinted there. Even so, the residual divine power it radiated still made Iceheart Venerable, an apex expert, feel a chill of terror. Her personal maid Aluo took the cloth scrap and muttered quite discontentedly, Venerable, why are you sending things to the Taicang Great State again? Our own Shingling Prefecture doesn't even have enough precious treasures for ourselves. Yet you keep sending them out one after another, making it seem as if that place is our husband's family. Iceheart Venerable, who had been listening to Aluo's unintentional complaint, suddenly became anxious and shouted in a delicate voice, Nonsense. Send it over right now. Aluo was so frightened that she shrank her neck. She looked dazed, as if she no longer recognized the Venerable before her. The Venerable had always been unhurried and mild-mannered, never losing her temper even at jokes. What was the matter today? Just one mention of husband's family, and she immediately got upset. Could it be that she really got, by Pick a Good Name over in the Taicang Great State? That guy is notoriously good at teasing women. She had even reminded the Venerable not to fall for Pick a Good Name's tricks. The Venerable had said they would never meet, so where would she be teased by him? As a result, after just one trip to the Taicang Great State, the Venerable was really taken down. Aluo extended her hand absent-mindedly to take the cloth scrap. Iceheart Venerable gave her a light glare and warned, Be careful, don't knock off the seal on it, or it will crush you to death. Although the cloth scrap had lost the power to crush the Central Plains barrier, but when she was cleaning up remnants near the rift back then, she found it underneath a pile of ruins. And that ruin had once been a mountain peak towering 1,000 zhang. The cloth scrap had crushed the mountain and even sunk into the ground beneath. One could imagine its weight. Even if suddenly thrown onto a Venerable, the other party might not be able to bear it. Aluo came back to her senses and responded respectfully, Yes, Venerable. Iceheart Venerable watched Aluo depart, murmuring softly, I hope it can help you. She lifted the moon mirror and looked again at the information Hongxiu had provided. Her eyes were full of approval. This Asura, named Glasses, is truly exceptionally bright and intelligent. Even in dire straits, he could still see the big picture and make the wise decision to continue helping the Taicang Great State. Back then, he also reminded me that the owner of the primordial decree was not someone to provoke. I really should have listened to him. A bitter smile tugged at the corner of her mouth. If she hadn't insisted on going after the primordial decree, she wouldn't have taken a hit from Fang Chen for nothing and also made a fuss about the bellyband incident. Thinking of this, she embarrassedly covered her face. The moon mirror suddenly emitted crisp beeping sounds. Iceheart Venerable looked down. It was a message from Fang Chen. From the account Pick a Good Name, Fang Chen sent a cheekily grinning message. With Sister Wealth around, I can save 20 years of hard work. Iceheart Venerable rolled her eyes slightly and was about to angrily type a reply but hesitated. With a light swipe of her fingertip, she deleted the text. A hint of playfulness flashed in her eyes as she wrote anew. This old body only has a few years left to live. Come keep me company, and when I die, all my inheritance will be yours. Far away, in the Taicang Grand State, Fang Chen's face turned green. He screamed inwardly, no way. I was just joking. Why is the rich lady so serious? And is blooming wealth even older than I imagined? Not a rich lady at all, but a rich old granny. The moon mirror chimed crisply again. Never spoils fun, suddenly interrupted and asked, Excuse me, how old is Sister Wealth? Iceheart Venerable playfully replied, Not old, just an 800-year-old girl. Never Spoils Fun immediately seconded loudly, I support this marriage with both hands and feet. Whoever opposes, I'll fight them. The heavens have eyes. That damned Fang Chen has enjoyed a lifetime of romantic luck, and finally an old granny is going to end it all. Main consort also immediately voiced support. Should be supported. Let him save 100 years of detours. Death Diary followed up closely, delivering the final blow. Must be supported. I also bless you to be together life after life, never to be separated. Flower Cluster also joined the commotion, jeering, Can't help but support. Martial Uncle has finally found true love. Only Honxiu stared at the moon mirror and gently shook her head. From the way Blooming Wealth spoke, this person was clearly a naive young woman, inexperienced in the ways of the world. These fellows really thought she was an old granny and kept trying to match them up. Wasn't this giving Fang Chen an advantage? After thinking, she raised her fingers and wrote, Glasses, supported, may you have a baby soon. Fang Chen looked at the string of responses that popped up and almost vomited blood on the spot. These cursed things that can't stand seeing him the slightest bit happy. He directly put away the moon mirror and played dead on the spot. No matter how the moon mirror kept beeping, he dared not take another look. A long time later, Iceheart Venerable was already holding the moon mirror, giggling non-stop. She said to herself with satisfaction, Now you see how unpopular you usually are. Everyone can't wait for you to make a fool of yourself. You'd better be glad the great calamity has arrived, and we won't have a chance to meet again. Otherwise, I'd dress up as an old granny to confront you for real, and shame you into finding a crack in the ground to crawl into. HMPH. She imagined herself turning into an old woman, scaring Fang Chen so much his face turned green. Unable to hold back, she covered her mouth and snickered. Time flew by quickly. As the identity tokens of all Taicang Grand State's disciples emitted a series of beeps. Everyone's hearts felt as if clenched tightly by an invisible giant hand. This day, in the end, had come inevitably. Before Fang Chen, 4 halos the size of sesame seeds orbited and circled, each emanating the aura of origin sources. They were precisely the origin sources of wind, fire, lightning, and the newly cultivated earth origin source. He thought secretly, I hope these origin sources will prove useful in the great battle. With a thought, the 4 origin sources lightly returned into his body. Then he picked up the token. Inside was no longer just simple numbers, but the sorrowful message from the Grand Libationer to all martial warriors. A millennium of calamity and eternal misfortune. Living beings of this era, the catastrophe belonging to your age has arrived. I hope you have prepared yourselves for death. And I also hope that you harbor few regrets. For this will be the most difficult calamity, one from which none can stand apart, and none will be spared. Anyone may fall, including myself. Reading this, Fang Chen's heart grew as heavy as a mountain. Even the Grand Libationer, the strongest in Taicang Grand State, had openly stated he might fall. Much less others. He took a deep breath and continued reading. The road ahead is dark and without light, but we cannot stop, because we are the sole flame in the eyes of all living beings. We must advance, carve a path for the common people in despair, and ignite a light in the darkness for them. I, the Grand Libationer of Taicang Grand State, am willing to burn my body, to live and die with all living beings. May you all march forward with me. And please believe, a single spark can start a prairie fire. Fang Chen slowly rose to his feet. His gaze was powerful and steady as he looked up toward the sky above. He did not feel his blood boil, nor did he feel impassioned or fervent, because he had always thought this way and acted accordingly. Valiantly we stand, like the kin of yore, sharing the nation's doom. Born as a human, fortunate to become a strong warrior of the human race, one should carry the long sword at the waist and defend our mountains and rivers. He gripped the purple sword in his hand and pushed open the stone door. His eyes gleamed with a cold, sharp light as he said in a deep voice, "Ancient giants, I have awaited you for a long time." Outside the stone door, the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion Master and others had already gathered. Even Huanquin Biluo, who had been enclosed, door cultivation, had appeared. Not a single one was absent. Everyone's expressions were solemn and grave. This day, not only Fang Chen had been waiting. They had been waiting too. Fang Chen took a deep breath and asked, "Is everyone ready?" The Heavenly Secrets Pavilion Master replied, "Only Shang Shikyu, Leng Qingzhu, and Yuan Qingsu remain to guard the sect. The rest have gone to the Qinshan Observatory to await arrangements." Fang Chen nodded slightly. The three had just broken through to the nascent soul stage, and their strength was unstable. It was most appropriate for them to stay and guard the sect. Gu Zinner stepped forward, holding a jade box, saying, "Here, Sister Fugui sent this to you." Yesterday, Gu Zinner had gone to the Qinshan Observatory's teleportation array to fetch items. Fang Chen still did not know exactly what gift Hua Kai Fugui had sent. He fixed his gaze, and his pupils involuntarily contracted. How could he not recognize this tattered piece of cloth that had once crushed the spatial barrier of the central continent? How had this object ended up in Hua Kai Fugui's hands? That old rich lady truly had remarkable abilities. Sensing the divine might within the fabric, Fang Chen's eyes showed gratitude as he said, "If used properly, this item can unleash tremendous power. I owe Sister Fugui a great favor." At that moment, a sea breeze drifted gently by. A cloud drifted and flew gracefully toward the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion. From it descended a young maiden in a pink dress, whose peerless beauty was breathtaking. Her features were exquisite, and the few colorful scales on her forehead, far from detracting from her appearance, added a hint of exotic charm. She was none other than the Eastern Sea's Demon Empress Yizhu. Fang Chen was taken aback and stepped forward to welcome her, saying, "Elder Sister Yizhu, why have you come? You have the Eastern Sea to guard. There is no need for you to go to the battlefield." Once the Great War began, the Four Seas would also not be spared from the ancient giant's invasion. How could she leave the Eastern Sea? Demon Empress Yizhu took out 5 spatial storage treasures, her gaze full of tenderness as she looked at Fang Chen, and softly said, "I came specially to deliver things to you." Deliver things? Fang Chen was stunned for a moment. The Heavenly Secrets Pavilion Master hurriedly explained, "These are some of the materials I commissioned the Four Seas Demon Emperors to collect for the Heavenly Vestment, Divine Water, and the Void Reversion Pill." Only then did Fang Chen suddenly understand. Before he left to deal with various matters in Taicang Grand State, he had entrusted the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion Master with gathering the materials for the 2 spirit pills. Many of those materials indeed could only be provided by the Sea clans. In just a few days, the Four Seas had collected everything and even delivered them, traveling day and night. It showed how hastily the Four Seas had prepared for this matter. A warm current surged in Fang Chen's heart, and he solemnly cupped his hands in salute, saying, "Many thanks, Elder Sister Yizhu." Demon Empress Yizhu gazed quietly at Fang Chen, her eyes showing a hint of relief and satisfaction, and softly said, "Seeing your current status, you are still willing to acknowledge me as your sworn elder sister. Indeed, all my rushing about has not been in vain." She paused slightly, then changed her tone and gently reminded him, "Also, don't thank me alone. Look, this one is from me, this one from the Northern Sea Demon Emperor, and this one from the Western Sea Demon Emperor." She turned her gaze to the other 2 storage treasures, her tone adding a touch of meaningful teasing. "As for these 2, they are from that long-legged one." As soon as she heard you needed pill, refining materials, she, more than anyone else, was eager. The Southern Seas Demon Empress Jiumeng. Hearing this, Fang Chen couldn't help but be dazed. His thoughts instantly drifted back to the moment they parted on the mainland, when she held the demon infant fruit that Fang Chen had given her, half jokingly and half seriously eyeing that was the betrothal gift for marrying her in the next life, and she would collect it early in this one. Unexpectedly, after that farewell, they had never met again. Yet now, knowing he needed help, she was more attentive than anyone else. But she had been reluctant to come in person, only entrusting these materials to Demon Empress Yizhu to deliver. Fang Chen extended both hands and solemnly received the 5 spatial storage treasures, feeling them heavy in his palms and heavy as well in his heart. He let out a heavy breath and said, "Thank you." Then he raised his head to look at Demon Empress Yizhu and earnestly asked her to stay. "Elder Sister Yizhu, please leave later. Once I have refined the spirit pills, you can take them back to distribute." Demon Empress Yizhu gazed at Fang Chen's slightly weary face, and her heart involuntarily ached a little. Fang Chen, he was truly too exhausted. She gracefully stepped forward, raised her hand, and gently brushed the dust from Fang Chen's shoulder, her voice soft yet carrying an undeniable firmness. "Forget about us. You must take good care of yourself." She took a deep breath, a trace of deep worry showing in her eyes, and said slowly, "I don't want this to be our last meeting." Fang Chen's heart trembled violently, and with deep emotion, he replied, "The same to you, Elder Sister Yizhu." Looking at this elder sister who had always taken care of him, he carefully admonished word by word, "You must also look after yourself and be sure to live until the end." Demon Empress Yizhu nodded heavily, and they gazed at each other for a long time, as if wanting to engrave each other's appearance in their hearts, before she reluctantly took her leave and turned to depart. Fang Chen watched her figure grow smaller and smaller until it completely vanished at the edge of the sky. He slowly retracted his gaze, but his eyes gradually grew resolute. Not for himself, but even for the vast seas, and for each of those old friends on the continent, he was determined to fight with all his might. Wait! Fang Chen suddenly remembered something, and hurriedly took out a snow-white spirit pill from his storage space. This was precisely the 100 spirits pill that could correct the 3rd princess's physical deformity. The pill's efficacy had long been verified. It had successfully restored Gu Zinner's abnormally enlarged chest to normal. But Demon Empress Yizhu had already gone far away. At this moment, there was no way to find any trace of her. Forget it. Fang Chen shook his head and muttered to himself, "The Eastern Sea's 3rd princess must first survive for this spirit pill to have meaning." He carefully put away the 100 spirits pill, thinking to himself, "After this great war ends, if she is still alive, and I am too, it won't be too late to give it to her then." After storing the pill, Fang Chen once again took hold of the 5 spatial storage treasures and fixed his gaze inward to scan them. He saw inside, densely packed and piled up like mountains, all of them precious materials unique to the Kanghai realm. Just then, the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion Master also stepped forward, took out 3 spatial storage treasures, and handed them over, saying, "These are the ones I commissioned various sects to help collect." His smile carried a touch of emotion as he added, "Thanks to your reputation being at its zenith, everyone is very willing to help, especially the Giant Clan and the Great Yin sect, who have gone the extra mile. It can be said that all the materials for refining void, returning pills, and heavenly garment divine water in the entire Taicang province are gathered here. The Giant Clan, the Great Yin sect." Fang Chen silently repeated these 2 names in his heart, then reached out to accept the storage artifact and decisively said, "Find a gap, and I'll fire up the furnace to refine spirit pills again. No time to lose, let's go." At the same time, in the void that was forcibly blasted open by the world-shaking battle between the Heavenly Eye Sage and the Asura Emperor on the Tiantian battlefield, a crackly, NG sound broke the deathly silence. The black chains binding Venerable Evil Crow were fully unlocked at this moment. The punishment imposed on him by the Grand Libationer had expired. Venerable Evil Crow slowly stretched his long, stiff body, and the crow tattoos that spread from his face down his body glimmered with a cold, eerie black light. Just like his current gaze, sinister and terrifying. "For imprisoning me, stealing the remains of my corpse Yin lineage's ancestor, and seizing the position of Great Yin Sect Master." He roared through gritted teeth, every word soaked in bone. "Deep hatred, Fang Chen, I will be your eternal mortal enemy." Outside the Imperial Observatory, when Fang Chen led the people of the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion to arrive, they saw the sea outside the observatory was already packed, a sea of dense heads stretching as far as the eye could see. The 3 divine sects, the 7 great religions, and numerous other sect forces of Taicang province had all assembled here, all uniformly cultivators at the nascent soul stage. And far more than just the batch of mid-nascent soul cultivators capable of contending with the ancient giants. Even many martial cultivators at the early nascent soul stage had gathered here now. A rough count showed no less than 2,000 people. Fang Chen felt secretly shocked, so many nascent soul cultivators existed in Taicang province. It could be seen that under this province-wide mobilization order, the vast majority of sects had staked their entire fortunes, ready for a desperate do-or-die battle. Unfortunately, among them, those at mid, nascent soul and above, even counting on fingers, barely amounted to a mere 500. Compared to the Black Sun Royal Court's full 1,000 ancient giants, there was an irreparable, staggering disparity. Moreover, there was still a central tribe army lurking, its whereabouts unknown, eyeing them covetously. This battle, looking at it, seemed utterly hopeless. Just as the atmosphere was heavy, a figure suddenly shot out from the main island, grumbling with evident dissatisfaction. "Old thing, repaying your favor is just too damn hard." The voice was filled with the relief of liberation. "It took me a full 60-year cycle, but today I'm finally free." Everyone raised their heads to look, and saw an old man with rough, reddish, bronze skin flying out from the Grand Libationer's heartless dwelling. Most people present didn't recognize him, but Fang Chen was all too familiar with him. Fang Chen showed slight surprise, recognizing him at a glance. Isn't this that senior from the fire worship sect's underground palace? If he remembered correctly, this person was an artifact refining grandmaster capable of crafting top-grade spirit artifacts. What was he doing at the Imperial Observatory? And from the tone of his grumbling, was he speaking to the Grand Libationer? Just as he was thinking this, the Grand Libationer, gently holding his duster, unhurriedly walked out from the heartless dwelling and said with a smile, "The wine is not yet finished. Ed, why in such a hurry to leave?" The red-faced old man turned back angrily and retorted, "If I don't leave, do I have to stay in your Taicang province and be driven like a slave by you?" Before his words had died away, not even waiting for the Grand Libationer to come forward and persuade him, he shot into the air and headed towards the teleportation island, leading to Divine Weapon Province. Just as he was about to activate the array and leave, the red-faced old man suddenly stopped as if sensing something and turned to look around. When his gaze fell on the Zhang High Evil Sword floating behind Fang Chen, he was taken aback and instantly teleported over. Pointing at the gigantic sword, he asked in a mix of shock and suspicion, This thing, could it have been forged from that meteorite back then?" At this moment, Fang Chen had already vaguely guessed the true identity of this red-faced old man. Not daring to be negligent, he hurriedly cupped his fists and bowed, respectfully answering, reporting to Senior, this was personally crafted by a senior from Divine Weapon Province. Upon hearing this, the red-faced old man was so furious his beard bristled, and he swore loudly, "A bunch of prodigal brats who sell off their forefathers' land without a pang of remorse, taking advantage of my absence. Are you going to squander all the good stuff Divine Weapon Province has saved up?" Mid-rant, he suddenly paused. Wait. He abruptly felt the voice speaking was familiar, looked down, and his eyes instantly went wide. "You little brat." He hadn't forgotten in the slightest how Fang Chen had fleeced him for 100 times the price with a single yin energy radish back then. Fang Chen's face showed a sheepish smile as he tried to smooth things over. "Isn't it said that fate brings people together no matter where? Senior, it's a pleasure to meet again." The red-faced old man flared up even more. "Who wants fate with you? There isn't a single good thing in your Taicang province." He pointed at Fang Chen, then looked toward the distant heartless dwelling, and raged, "One little swindler like you, and one old swindler like him. All the losses I've suffered in my life don't add up to what I've fallen for at your hands. I'm off. Both of you better just die on the battlefield. I never want to see either of you again." After saying that, he didn't even bother to dwell on the matter of the evil sword, as if afraid that staying a moment longer would result in another fleecing by Fang Chen, and instantly teleported away. Only a massive beam of spatial light shot into the sky, and the red-faced old man's aura completely vanished from Taicang province. Fang Chen stood there speechlessly, rubbing his nose. "I really just got inexplicably chewed out for no reason," he muttered under his breath. "If I hadn't considered his old bones, I might have just outright collapsed and played dead on the spot." The corners of the surrounding people's mouths couldn't help but twitch violently. Probably only Fang Chen dared to say such a thing. The red-faced old man was clearly some top-tier powerhouse from Divine Weapon Province, someone who could exchange barbs with the Grand Libationer as equals, and notably, without a divine halo on the back of his head, very likely an actual sage. What a pity I had wanted to keep him in Taicang province to help us deal with the ancient giants. The Grand Libationer sighed with regret, then looked around and announced loudly, "The province-level teleportation array will be closed before sunset. Let it be known to all." Fang Chen suddenly understood. No wonder the red-faced old man was in such a hurry to leave. He also suddenly recalled that the Grand Libationer had once said that after the ancient giants descended, to prevent the fallen provinces from becoming their springboard, once the Great War began, all province-level teleportation arrays across the 9 provinces would be shut down. But if that's the case, how would the provinces communicate with each other? As he was pondering this, the Grand Libationer smiled at Fang Chen, his gaze meaningfully falling on the evil sword behind him, and said, "Fortunately, he didn't notice the extraordinary nature of your artifact spirit. Otherwise, even if I had to lose face today, I would have had to demand that evil sword back for him." He paused, then added, "This sword was originally intended by him to be directly refined into a quasi-world artifact." Fang Chen clicked his tongue inwardly in shock. Directly refining a quasi-world artifact. There was no need to guess the red-faced old man's strength. He was definitely an actual stage expert. Most likely, like the benevolent Heart Sage, because of health problems or some other reason, he couldn't go to the battlefield where the Heavenly Eye Sage was and ultimately remind Ned in the Middle Territory. At the thought that he had once thoroughly swindled such a major figure, Fang Chen couldn't help but feel a twinge of guilt. He quickly coughed dryly and hurriedly changed the subject. "Grand Libationer, there's no time to lose. Let us go and move the heaven connecting Black Pillar now." Green Pearl was still waiting in the heaven realm. Only after the heaven connecting Black Pillar was moved would she dare to return safely. This matter truly couldn't be delayed a moment longer. The Grand Libationer nodded gently and said, "Let me make a few arrangements first." His gaze swept slowly over those gathered, and he spoke in a deep voice. "You will immediately take the teleportation array to the central hinterland of Taicang Grand State and assemble outside the Doom Forbidden Ground to await orders." After a brief pause, he added unhurriedly, "Additionally, all warriors below the mid-nascent soul stage shall first report to Commander Bai and Commander Liu Dao to each receive a piece of equipment." As his words fell, 2 figures descended from the main training platform. It was Bai Xin and Liu Dao Shangren. Each held a large spatial storage device in their hands. Bai Xin immediately raised his sleeve and gave a wave, and the storage device swung open. Pieces of equipment that Fang Chen knew all too well instantly filled his vision. They were unmistakably giant ballistae, heavy cannons, and ferocious war chariots lined with dense blades on their sides. Fang Chen had seen all these instruments in the hidden spaces of the boundary mount in Great Wall. They were the peerless weapons humanity had used to fight against the ancient giants 1,000 years ago. Sadly, the equipment in those spaces could not withstand the merciless ravages of 1,000 years. The moment they were removed, they quickly rotted and crumbled to dust. Fang Chen had secretly wondered why, as Taicang Grand State prepared to confront the ancient giants, those weapons had not reappeared. Only at this moment did Fang Chen suddenly understand. So the Grand Libationer had invited a Grandmaster of Artifact Refining, whose cultivation had reached the Sage Realm, to forge equipment for Taicang Grand State for a full 60 years. Thus, the Grand Libationer had begun laying plans for today's battle 60 years in advance. He appeared to do nothing, yet in truth he was pulling all the strings, having long since seized control of the entire situation. At this realization, Fang Chen's heart suddenly swelled with confidence. These massive assault instruments all possessed immense killing power against the ancient giants. With over 1,500 nascent soul warriors, if each was armed with one, it would be enough to close a portion of the strength disparity with the ancient giants. Were it not for the Central Tribe's vast army, their chances of winning this battle would be tremendous. A sense of anticipation grew in his heart. How masterful would the Grand Libationer's arrangement for the sky-piercing pillar be? Could it be that this Doom Forbidden Ground was actually another ultimate killing weapon designed to counter the ancient giants? Having arranged everything properly, the Grand Libationer turned to Fang Chen and said evenly, "You and I shall go on ahead. The rest could proceed directly to the Forbidden Ground." But the 2 of them had to first go to where the sky-piercing pillar was, uproot it entirely, and then carry it directly to the Doom Forbidden Ground. Thus, Fang Chen took leave of the people from the Heavenly Mystery Pavilion, closely followed the Grand Libationer, and stepped into the teleportation array. With a flash of radiance, heaven and earth spun, and the 2 found themselves at White Horse Temple. Then they walked straight to the northwestern part of White Horse Temple. The sky-piercing pillar still stood there, towering and majestic, unchanged as ever. The last time, the Asura clansmen from the various strongholds had relied on this very sky-piercing pillar to descend from the heavenly realm. At this thought, Fang Chen could not help but ask aloud, Grand Libationer, have the Asura clansmen from the heavenly realm been settled properly. He had personally promised the strongholds that he would surely see to the well-being of their people. Without breaking stride, the Grand Libationer replied, I have long since settled them on an island in the boundless sea and assigned them 10 late, Nace, and Soul Stage Asura experts. Unless Taicang Grand State falls completely, they shall not suffer even a sliver of disturbance. Upon hearing this, Fang Chen was fully relieved. Without another word, he exerted strength with both arms and hoisted the sky, piercing pillar steadily. Guided by the Grand Libationer, his form flickered like lightning as he bore the colossal pillar, speeding toward the heart of Taicang Grand State. Meanwhile, in the heavenly realm, beside the top of the sky-piercing pillar, a figure sitting cross-legged abruptly opened her eyes. It was Lu Zhu. She keenly sensed that the sky-piercing pillar beneath her had moved, and slowly exhaled a turbid breath. Lu Zhu sighed softly and murmured to herself, that little liar has finally moved the sky-piercing pillar. I've been away so long without return, I fear the 5-star Giant King has been suspicious of me for a while. With that uncanny ability of his to foresee the future, he has likely already divined my whereabouts. You're going to be the death of me this time. Her pretty face showed a trace of distress as she hesitated over whether to return. If she returned hoping for the best, she would likely be exposed on the spot by the 5-star Giant King, and the consequences would be utterly unpredictable. Yet if she did not return, a wisp of her natal soul was still held in the hands of the 5-star Giant King. No matter the distance, the other party could still end her life in an instant. After deliberating for a long while, she finally retrieved the head provided by the Grand Libationer and sighed lightly. I can only give this a try. If the 5-star Giant King truly wanted to kill her, he would have long since snuffed her out from afar using that strand of soul power. The fact that she still lived now indicated that the 5-star Giant King harbored no killing intent. She silently followed the direction of the sky-piercing pillar's movement, rising up into the air. She merely waited for the sky-piercing pillar to stop, so she could pretend she had just climbed up from the lower realm along the pillar. The Central Plains, the heart of Taicang Grand State. Shrouded in a dense black mist, the ruins of an ancient city that had slumbered for a millennium loomed dimly. Gazing closely, one could make out several skeletons, their surfaces smooth and lustrous like jade, resting silently in every corner of the ruins. Fang Chen, bearing the sky-piercing pillar, came to a steady halt before the ruins. As he gazed at the churning, eerie black mist before him, he casually retrieved a damaged low-grade spirit artifact from the Tiantian battlefield out of his spatial storage, and hurled it inside. In that very instant, the previously placid black fog abruptly stirred to life like an awakened supreme beast and fiercely enveloped the artifact. A grating, sizzling sound of corrosion rang out, and the low-grade spirit artifact, which even a nascent soul powerhouse would struggle to damage, was corroded until its color rapidly changed, gradually dissolving right before Fang Chen's eyes into a puddle of foul liquid. Fang Chen clicked his tongue in shock and asked in alarm, Grand Libationer, how exactly did this forbidden ground come to be? He had anticipated that a place called a forbidden ground would naturally be exceedingly perilous. But the fact that even a low-grade spirit artifact could be corroded and melted in an instant far exceeded his expectations. Such terrifying corrosive power meant that even ultimate experts at the divine transformation realm could never remain in this black mist for long. Otherwise, even if they survived, their internal organs would be corroded beyond repair. As for nascent soul cultivators, that goes without saying. Falling in would easily reduce them to a puddle of viscous blood. The Grand Libationer stared at the black mist, a look of lament in his eyes, and said, This place is the fall, site of the doomed sage. His sage remains triggered a drastic upheaval in the surrounding heaven and earth, thereby creating this dreadful forbidden ground. Any who enter, even if their flesh manages to withstand the black mist's corrosion, their soul and will shall still be gnawed by the remnant laws of doom within the fall site. The doomed sage. Fang Chen's heart stirred fiercely, and he could not help but recall the North Sea princess, Jai Qingshuan. Before she left, she had gifted him a severed bone of doom. She had said it was a supreme treasure, acquired from the foremost danger zone of Taicang Grand State. Could that severed bone of doom actually originate from this doom, sage corpus? Just then the Grand Libationer laid out his plan. We must place the sky-piercing pillar at the very center of the forbidden ground. In this way, when the ancient giants descend, they will plunge directly into the forbidden ground, while our forces shall stand arrayed outside the forbidden ground, ready to strike at their heads. Upon hearing this, Fang Chen quickly analyzed it in his mind. This forbidden ground was not particularly large, spanning roughly the extent of a millennia, Mold City. With the fearsome physiques of the ancient giants, if they sprinted all out without regard for anything, they would need at most a dozen breaths to forcibly charge out of this black mist. Yet in those dozen breaths, the corrosion would suffice to render their skin to tatters and send flesh flying in all directions. Should any be unfortunate enough to have their eyes corroded by the mist, they would lose all sense of direction, hopelessly wandering inside until they dissolved into a puddle of gore. Even those lucky enough to escape would undoubtedly be left with severe injuries. Then the warrior army of Taicang Grand State, at the height of their strength, could strike them head on. Furthermore, we have over 500 mid-nascent soul powerhouses, along with nascent soul warriors, each equipped with a powerful assault weapon. Under such a coordinated siege, the direction of the battle was all but obvious. The light in Fang Chen's eyes grew ever brighter. This battle, which he had thought would be impossibly difficult, was now brimming with boundless hope. He turned around and solemnly cupped his hands in salute to the Grand Labationer, his voice full of genuine admiration. Grand Labationer, your strategic mastery is truly admirable. This junior bows in respect. A situation that was certain death was miraculously turned alive by the Grand Labationer through sheer force of will. Ha ha ha! The Grand Labationer let out a surprised, hearty laugh, then said, "If we win this battle, the one the people of Taicang Great State should thank the most is you, not me. Your ability to move the sky-touching black pillar is the key to turning the tide and securing victory. If we only had the attack artifacts from 1,000 years ago, the outcome would still be uncertain. But with this forbidden ground, we have seized an absolute advantage." Fang Chen felt his blood surging with excitement. He took a deep breath and said, "There's no time to lose. I will lift the sky-touching black pillar inside now. Grand Labationer, please lend me your aid." The Grand Labationer twirled the horsetail whisk in his hand, and with a composed expression, stepped first into the forbidden ground. Wherever he passed, the thick, impenetrable black mist parted on its own, as if possessing sentience, reverently clearing a path to both sides. Without turning his head, he warned, "You possess the primordial sources of thunder and fire, which can briefly resist the invasion of the black mist and the laws of misfortune. But remember, you must not linger within." "Oh?" A flash of surprise crossed Fang Chen's eyes. The thunder origin and fire origin could actually shield him for a short time. His gaze flickered, and he quietly committed this to memory. Then, following closely behind the Grand Labationer, he stepped into the churning black mist. Almost the instant they stepped in, Fang Chen keenly noticed that the several pristine skeletons lying among the rubble had suddenly trembled slightly. This eerie sight immediately gave Fang Chen a start. His heart clenched. Could these skeletons still be alive? The Grand Labationer merely sighed softly and said, "They were all the close female confidantes of the misfortune sage in life. After the misfortune sage fell, they came here to guard his remains, until one by one they passed away in meditation here. Now they are nothing but lingering obsessions. As long as you do not touch the misfortune sage's body, they will not attack anyone." Upon hearing this, Fang Chen's heart was filled with profound respect. In life, the misfortune sage must have been an immensely worthy and respected person. That is why these confidantes remained so steadfast, guarding his remains until the very end of their lives. Fang Chen's eyes flickered, and he couldn't help but ask, then why didn't they bury the misfortune sage's body for proper rest? The Grand Labationer slowly explained, that is because the misfortune sage himself did not wish it. He left this sage body and the great treasures of his lifetime behind solely to bestow boons upon future generations. If you are fated, you may take his treasures later. An indescribable admiration surged in Fang Chen's heart. Even at the moment of his death, the misfortune sage was still thinking of those who would come after. He couldn't help but think of the master of the Jade Paper Heavenly Book, of the Heavenly Eye Sage, of the Twin Sages, of the Northern Mystic Sword Exalt, and even more of the Huma and Vanguard who fell so nobly on the Heavenly Mountain battlefield. The ancient sages paved a path of survival, stretching 1,000 years with their very flesh and bone. And they, too, should follow the sages' example, stamping out another path of survival for their own descendants. Fang Chen's gaze abruptly became immensely resolute. The two traversed through the black mist, and soon reached the very center of the forbidden ground. The black mist here was so dense it seemed like ink that could never be diluted. Fang Chen focused his eyesight and strained to see far ahead, finally discerning the horrifying sight above the ancient city. A perfectly upright ancient corpse was floating in midair above the ruins. Though 1,000 years had flown by, his flesh and blood had not decayed. A tattered cloak billowed and snapped wildly in the chill gale, producing a ripping, fluttering sound. Thick black hair writhed like mad serpents, wild and unrestrained. His eyes were wide with fury, gazing down arrogantly into the distance. His left hand pointed toward the sky, while his right hand pressed firmly on a pitch-black ancient stone tablet. An endless, biting battle, intent swirled around him like a tangible force. It was as if he had forcibly torn through time and space from that bloody battlefield of 1,000 years past, still locked in desperate, life-or-death combat with a formidable foe. Yet a blood-red spear, 10 zhang long, cruelly pierced through his chest completely. The spear emanated an aura of destruction beyond imagination. Just one glance from Fang Chen stirred up countless dark, negative emotions in his heart. Thoughts of tyranny, slaughter, and greed crazily bred, causing his eyes to rapidly turn a terrifying blood red. This feeling was exactly the same as when he first saw the blood pool. As for the true origin of that blood-colored long spear, need more be said. The Grand Libationer abruptly waved his sleeve, decisively cutting off Fang Chen's line of sight to the spear, and warned in a deep voice, "Do not look at it further. If you stare too long, you too will transform into an ancient giant." Fang Chen's internal energy slowly settled, his heart secretly growing vigilant. He was not afraid of the thing itself, as he carried the saint's crystal shedding, whose holy power was enough to purify the spear's corrosion. But what shocked him was that this spear truly possessed the terrifying power to kill a sage. He took a heavy breath, looked at the Grand Libationer, and asked gravely, back then, who exactly dealt the blow. The Grand Libationer was silent for a few breaths, then slowly uttered that long, buried honorific title, the 9, Sun Giant Emperor. Fang Chen's pupils instantly contracted sharply. That day, the Giant King, possessed by the heavenly Ice Age remnant soul, only had 2 suns on his forehead. Then this so-called 9, Sun Giant Emperor, must be the most supreme existence among the giant royal clan. Just one final step away from achieving the legendary realm, Lord Realm. Fang Chen's Adam's apple bobbed with difficulty, and he asked hoarsely, then 1,000 years ago, how did our Middle Lands ever win? He truly could not imagine that in an era when saints had faded away, who could stop a 9, Sun Giant Emperor comparable to a saint descending upon the Middle Lands. Even one as mighty as the Misfortune Sage was pierced and killed with a single spear thrust. The Grand Libationer tilted his head toward Fang Chen, his eyes profound, and uttered only 2 words, luck. My luck! Fang Chen could not understand, in such a life, and death war of annihilation, how could victory or defeat possibly be decided by something as light as the word luck? He cast one last deep gaze at the Misfortune Sage's remains, brought his palms together in a reverent bow, and solemnly said, "Honored predecessor, forgive our intrusion." With that, he lifted the sky-touching black pillar and placed it in the very center of the ruins. This place had the thickest and heaviest black mist, and thus the strongest lethality against ancient giants. However, the moment he approached the remains of the Misfortune Sage, Fang Chen suddenly furrowed his brows. He stared fixedly at the Misfortune Sage's neck, pointed with a frown, and asked, Grand Libationer, "Look, what is that?" On the sage's neck, there were 2 deep holes starkly visible, as if bitten viciously by some venomous creature. The Grand Libationer merely glanced at it and replied calmly, "Those marks were left by the Asura Holy Sun you have been searching for." "What?" Fang Chen's expression changed drastically, and he shouted sharply, "The Asura Holy Sun drained the Misfortune Sage's sage blood." Yes, it must be. The Misfortune Sage was originally of the bloodthirsty Asura lineage, just like that QE star Asura, sustaining his cultivation by devouring the blood essence of living beings. And the Asura Holy Sun, being a creature of hell, had no use for the cultivation resources of the Middle Lands. But the heart's blood essence of a sage would be enough to send his power skyrocketing, allowing him to break through layer after layer of bottlenecks in one fell swoop. Rage erupted in Fang Chen's heart like a volcano, surging violently upward. The Misfortune Sage remains were meant as the last blessing for all beings in the Middle Lands, yet that despicable wretch had stolen the blood essence. He suddenly turned to the Grand Libationer, a surge of resentment rushing to his head, and couldn't help but complain, "Nothing escapes your all-seeing eyes in Taicang Great State. Why did you stand by and do nothing when the Asura Holy Sun sucked the sage blood essence and siphoned off our great state's 10,000-year fortune? Taking Great State's decline from one of the 3 strongest states of the Middle Lands to its current last place stems from that catastrophe centuries ago when its fortune was plundered. As a mighty expert of the sage realm, why did you just watch with folded arms, allowing that beast to run amok? The great libation priest's expression remained as placid as water, as he slowly responded. The great events of Taicang Grand State indeed cannot escape my eyes. But what if someone deliberately covered my eyes? Fang Chen's heart felt as if it had been struck by a heavy hammer, jolting violently. Could it be that what can obscure the great libation priest's perception is a saint of the Central Plains? Could it be that among the 9 saints, someone? He glanced at the sky with a taboo, lowering his voice meaningfully. The great libation priest immediately understood the meaning behind his words, but shook his head and sighed. If the 9 saints truly intended to betray the Central Plains, why would they need to go through such trouble? Fang Chen was instantly stunned. These words were indeed reasonable. Those were the ancient saints who personally forged the Central Plains, whose every word and deed could alter the fate of all living beings. If any among them wished to betray, a single thought could annihilate all beings. Why would they need to secretly collude with the Hell Realm? Then what exactly are they doing this for? Fang Chen racked his brains, but couldn't fathom it. The great libation priest let out a long sigh, his eyes revealing deep exhaustion, and said, I cannot fathom it either. Even human hearts are hard to predict, let alone the hearts of saints. But I dare assert, they are definitely setting up a heaven-shaking grand scheme sufficient to affect the entire situation of the Central Plains. Fang Chen nodded slowly, his expression solemn. Having sacrificed the vast fortune of Taicang Grand State for hundreds of years, could the things they plot be small? He then calmed his mind and said with relief, Forget it, since it's a lay. Out by the saints, I'll say no more. I only hope that the sacrifices of Taicang Grand State over these years will not be in vain. Suddenly, a flash of inspiration struck his mind, and he abruptly recalled that broken bone of calamity. With a thought, Fang Chen took out that mysterious bone from his body. He lowered his head to examine the broken bone in his hand, and couldn't help muttering, This thing can't possibly be the actual remains of the Calamity Sage, right? What level is Jai Qingshuan at? The depths of the forbidden ground she simply can't enter. Let alone, in front of a pile of Tao-severing remains, to disturb the body of the Calamity Sage. That's even more unrealistic. However, the moment the broken bone appeared in the world, the remains of the Calamity Sage actually reacted instantly. The cloak fluttered with a whoosh blown open by an invisible force of Kai, directly exposing the chest. Fang Chen focused his gaze and instantly felt his scalp tingle. He saw that the sage's abdomen had been cut open by some sharp blade. The originally neatly arranged ribs were now conspicuously missing too. And this broken bone, in Fang Chen's hand, in both shape and aura, perfectly matched that gap. This, Fang Chen looked utterly baffled, stunned speechless. How exactly did that girl Jai Qingshuan accomplish this? Moreover, how could the bone of a sage be so easily broken? The great libation priest seemed to have noticed earlier and gave a casual glance, saying, That princess from the North Sea gave it to you, right? Only she can treat the forbidden grounds of this world as if they were uninhabited. Fang Chen opened his mouth, momentarily at a loss for words. So that mysterious woman who loved books as her life, always said it was raining in the sky, and thus constantly carried an umbrella, actually had such a remarkable background. He couldn't help but rub his swollen temples and muttered to himself, Next time I run into her, I definitely must ask her properly. Let's leave first. He took one last look at that pitch-black stone monument that the Calamity Sage was gripping tightly, harboring not a trace of greed in his heart. That should be the Calamity Divine monument that the great libation priest had mentioned. The Asura Holy Sun had even done such a taboo thing as feeding on the sage's essence blood, yet didn't take this object with him, which clearly indicates that within this monument there must be a lethal danger hidden. At this critical juncture, it's better to restrain one's greed. The great libation priest also gazed at the divine monument, carefully sensing it for a moment, then slowly shook his head and said, Indeed, the predestined chance has not arrived. Within this stone monument is sealed a lie, frisking strike left behind by the Calamity Sage before his death. At this time, we must not act rashly. Yes, it says. Fang Chen instantly felt a chill down his spine, his scalp slightly tingling. Just as he had expected. This monument was presumably left by the Calamity Sage for later generations, a final trump card specifically meant to deal with the Giant King. If used properly, it could surely annihilate a powerful ancient giant in one fell swoop. The two no longer lingered and turned around, leaving the forbidden ground. At this moment, the powerhouses of the various great sects had arrived one after another from all directions. The great libation priest immediately set about arranging a defensive line. Based on the specific strengths, numbers, and the nature of the cultivation techniques of the experts from each sect, he calmly began to set up a battle formation like a heavens in net with the forbidden ground as the center. The intention was to launch the final decisive battle with the ancient giants as near to the forbidden ground as possible, absolutely not giving them a chance to spread to other corners of Taicang Grand State. The Heavens Mystery Pavilion was positioned in the exact east, with Green Blade Mountain directly behind them. If their direction was forcibly broken through, the ancient giants would surely drive straight in, slaughtering all the way to Green Blade Mountain. Besides this, the Fire Worship sect and a host of small to medium-sized sects were also assisting in defending the eastern front. Their foundational sects were also located in the east, so even if not for the common people of the world, but only to protect their own mountain gates and legacies, they would certainly fight to the death here. Seizing the gaps between the troop deployment, Fang Chen used this last bit of precious time to start refining spirit pills. He quickly set up a simple isolation array, then brought out the divine materials for the Void Reflection Spirit Pill and Heavenly Garment Divine Water, and started refining pills on the spot in an opened furnace. Time passed minute by minute, and in the blink of an eye, over half a day had gone by. There were only a short 3 shichen left before the final deadline of the ancient giant's descent. The powerhouses of all sects had all taken their positions, and the defensive deployment was complete. But at a glance, it seemed that a few of the most crucial figures were still missing. Just then, the 8 apertures nascent soul powerhouses present felt a strong palpitation in their hearts without any warning. The madness intent that had been tightly suppressed within their bodies actually showed faint signs of going berserk uncontrollably. Everyone suddenly raised their heads and looked closely. They saw that beside the great libation priest, a middle-aged man with a rough stature had quietly appeared at some unknown time. Fierce lightning bolts rampaged wildly over his body. It was none other than Venerable Heart Demon. The crowd's hearts were slightly shaken. The first venerable native to Taicang Grand State had finally arrived. After sweeping his gaze around, Venerable Heart Demon snorted with displeasure. "Ha, I thought I'd surely be the last to come. Those old fellows truly put on more airs than anyone else." As soon as he finished speaking, within the dim world, boundless Buddha light suddenly burst forth, rendering everyone's vision into a resplendent golden sea. The illusory figure of a colossal Buddha reaching the heavens, sat cross-legged, came floating over. A magnetic and slow voice drifted over like auspicious snow. "My Buddha is compassionate, bestowing mercy on all beings." The crowd was invigorated again, for the strongest Tao-severing venerable of Taicang Grand State had arrived. Venerable Heart Demon scoffed dismissively. "Your Buddhist sect has been full of talk of compassion for 1,000 years, but when it comes to truly protecting all living beings, aren't be a hindrance." The giant Buddha illusion put its palms together and replied with a voice like a great bell. "The Buddha delivers all beings. It is an unshirkable duty." Upon hearing this, Venerable Heart Demon still wore an expression of disapproval. Suddenly, he felt something in his heart and abruptly gazed toward the horizon, revealing a trace of astonishment in his eyes. Such powerful pressure. They saw a 9-colored rainbow spanning heaven and earth shooting over from the horizon. Upon the rainbow, a middle-aged man in white robes with a face like polished jade, exuding righteous kai, carrying a sword case on his back, drifted over gracefully. He swept before everyone and cupped his fist in greeting. Venerable Heart Demon looked at him with surprise and said, "You've been to the myriad Demon Grand State and gained no small harvest. Not only is your foundation firmly established, but you also seem to have strength, slightly surpassing us older generation Tao-severing venerables." The Bodhisattva also looked at him with a smile, put palms together, and said, "Congratulations, fellow Taoist Jiang, on your great improvement in strength." The comer was naturally Jiang Wuya. He smiled humbly. "Thanks to my sworn brother Fang Chen's good fortune, I received lavish rewards from the golden scale, great exalted." Fang Chen. Venerable Heart Demon and the Bodhisattva both looked simultaneously at Fang Chen, who was in the midst of pill refining, their gazes somewhat complex. Whether it was coincidence or that Fang Chen harbored an indescribable heavenly secret, all who were close to Fang Chen had obtained heaven, defying good fortune. The entire Heaven's Mystery Pavilion breaking through to nascent soul realm, which could be called a miracle of Taicang Grand State, that matter aside. Jiang Wuya, someone stuck at 9 apertures nascent soul, for many years unable to break through, under Fang Chen's guidance, successfully achieved Tao severing. Now on a trip to the myriad Demon Grand State, meeting Fang Chen, he again obtained a fortuitous encounter, and his strength greatly advanced. In contrast, the Heart Demon Venerable and the Bodhisattva, being neither allies nor enemies of Fang Chen, found themselves at a standstill. However, the Heart Demon Venerable quickly regained his composure, for at that very moment a sharp raven's caw pierced the sky. Immediately after, the Evil Crow Venerable, clad in black robes, descended from the void with a brooding expression. The Heart Demon Venerable couldn't help but gloat. Evil Crow, how does the taste of self-reflection treat you? If he and the Bodhisattva gained nothing, then the Evil Crow Venerable, who had made an enemy of Fang Chen, had met with utter disaster. He had been confined by the Heavenly Ice Age for a full 2 months, becoming a complete laughingstock throughout the great Taicang province. In comparison, he and the Bodhisattva had been far more fortunate. Evil Crow Venerable's expression grew even darker. Disregarding the presence of the Grand Libationer, he let out a furious roar. Fang Chen, get the hell out here. The voice, thick with killing intent, reverberated through the entire venue. The nascent soul cultivators instantly felt their chi and blood churn, their bodies stiffening. The oppressive aura was so overwhelming that it became hard to breathe. The Heart Demon Venerable frowned and shouted sharply, "Have you lost your mind? We face a great enemy. What do you mean by harming our own people?" He immediately acted, dissipating Evil Crow Venerable's voice and aura with a palm strike, firmly shielding everyone. Evil Crow Venerable howled with a grim expression, who told that little bastard Fang Chen to hide. Before the words had fully left his lips, an indifferent, icy voice erupted into the sky. "Are you blind? Can't you see me right here?" That familiar voice made Evil Crow Venerable gnash his teeth in fury. Even as his eyes sought the source of the sound, his mouth erupted with sky-shattering, killing intent. Fang Chen. When he finally focused his gaze, he saw Fang Chen on the ground, undoing an isolation barrier. He was sitting cross-legged on the ground, unhurriedly tidying up an assortment of bottles and jars. Without lifting his head, Fang Chen said coldly, "The Heavenly Ice Age told you to reflect, and this is how you reflect. It seems your reflection hasn't been deep enough." Evil Crow Venerable laughed in extreme fury. "Fine, fine, fine, 2 months apart, and you've gotten so arrogant, daring to speak to this Venerable like that. A lowly ant, truly lawless." Killing intent blazed in his eyes. "I'll teach you a lesson. If anyone dares to stop me, don't blame me for being merciless." As soon as the words fell, he glared fiercely at the Heart Demon Venerable, the Bodhisattva, and Zhang Wuya with a sinister look, trying to warn them with his eyes not to interfere. But strangely, all 3 of them looked calm. The Bodhisattva maintained a smile the entire time, not saying a word. Zhang Wuya also clasped his hands behind his back, silently watching. Not only did the Heart Demon Venerable not stop him, but a gloating look actually appeared on his face. This scene caused Evil Crow Venerable to freeze for a moment. What, can't that brat Fang Chen be touched? Is the Grand Libationer going to protect Fang Chen? Come to think of it, the Grand Libationer has always been extremely protective of Fang Chen. His expression darkened. He swept his gaze around and saw that the Grand Libationer was far away, meticulously arranging the battlefield, seemingly unconcerned with the commotion here. A cruel glint immediately flashed in Evil Crow Venerable's eyes. He secretly calculated that he could spare Fang Chen's life, but he must make him pay the price. Just at that moment, Fang Chen finished tidying up the elixirs and slowly rose to his feet. He fixed his cold, clear gaze on Evil Crow Venerable and said, "Word by word, fellow Venerables, none of you stop him. Let him come at me." He still vividly remembered that day at Moonlit Lake, when Evil Crow Venerable had casually tried to erase him merely because there were traces of the Yin Corpse method on him. Back then, he had just entered the nascent soul realm. Under Evil Crow Venerable's unfathomably powerful aura, he couldn't even move a finger. He was like an ant at someone's mercy, only able to let the other stomp him to death. It was only through the desperate protection of the true words Venerable that he had survived. This bone, deep humiliation was something he still remembered to this day. Evil Crow Venerable laughed in anger. "You really have some nerve. Do you think that because you have the sage inscription on your body, you're someone important? Let me tell you, when the Heavenly Ice Age is present, I'll show you a modicum of respect. When he's not, killing you is like slaughtering a dog." With those words, his figure vanished on the spot, and he teleported straight for Fang Chen. Evil Crow Venerable was supremely confident that dealing with an ant like Fang Chen at the nascent soul realm required no fancy attacks whatsoever. A teleportation unique to the spirit-severing realm was a sure kill move that Fang Chen could not withstand. He only needed to deliver a casual palm strike, like swatting a stray dog, to smash him to the ground. However, the wind origin within Fang Chen had already activated. He was fully aware of the evil crow venerable's teleportation trajectory. With an indifferent expression, he casually beckoned, and the three divine weapons purple lightning, listening to snow, and evil sword instantly flew out, forming a sharp threak. Lord Divine Rainbow! Immediately, this divine rainbow slashed precisely toward the spot 3 feet behind his back. A sickening sound of slicing rang out, blood spattered, and a severed hand, dripping blood, flew out from the spatial tier, cut clean at the wrist. Immediately after, Evil Crow Venerable's figure stumbled out. He raised his arm, looking at the severed stump gushing blood. First, extreme confusion and doubt flashed in his eyes. It was only after 2 full breaths that the belated agony finally exploded in his eyes. He sharply gasped, letting out a heart-piercing howl, SSS, ah. Clutching his wrist, he roared in shock and rage, you're courting death. He never imagined that Fang Chen could accurately track his teleportation path and even sever one of his hands right before his eyes. And this, in front of nearly all the nascent soul and spirit severing cultivators of the great Taicang province. Where was his dignity? Where was his face? His eyes shot out sinister, killing intent as he bellowed, I want you dead. Seeing that he was about to attack again, Feng Yuanzong of the great Yin sect was terrified. He couldn't bear to watch his own venerable be slain, so he forced himself to fly over and urgently advised in a low voice, Venerable, hold your hand. Evil Crow Venerable grew even more furious at seeing his own subordinate dare to obstruct him. You bastard. Your Venerable is being humiliated, and you're taking the outsider's side. Do you really think he's your great Yin sect master? With overwhelming killing intent, he roared, Get out of the way, otherwise I'll kill you too. Feng Yuanzong was so shaken by the furious roar that his Kai and blood churned, and he vomited a mouthful of blood with a retch. Bearing the intense pain, he urgently cried out, Venerable, the one who will die is you. Evil Crow Venerable laughed angrily. You're saying I can't match a junior like him, you traitorous scum. Killing intent bursting forth, he raised his palm to strike Feng Yuanzong dead. Feng Yuanzong's heart leaped into his throat. Summoning all his strength, he yelled rapidly, Senior Fang has killed many spirit-severing cultivators. Evil Crow Venerable's palm instantly froze in midair. Frowning, he demanded harshly, Say that again. He almost doubted his own ears. Fang Chen could kill spirit-severing cultivators, and many at that. Could it be like killing space giant kings in the celestial realm, taking advantage of a weakness to pick up easy prey? Feng Yuanzong swallowed hard and quickly said, Venerable, you have been on the heavenly mountain battlefield and are unaware of the outside situation. A month ago, Senior Fang successively slew Heart Sin Venerable and Atus, Star Giant King. Feng Yuanzong spoke faster and faster. Half a month ago, he went to the heavenly remnant city in the return to Void State and slaughtered nearly half of the giants at the DHA Arima aspect realm. Killing spirit-severing cultivators has become routine for him. You'd better be careful, Venerable. The world outside has changed. Why? What? Evil Crow Venerable's eyes gradually widened to the point of bulging out of their sockets. Fang Chen killed Heart Sin Venerable. That was a venerable of the young Emperor Mountain, whose strength was immensely formidable. And even Atus, Star Giant King, fell at his hands. If that wasn't enough, he also went alone to the heavenly remnant city and killed at least 4 or 5 giants at the spirit-severing realm. Evil Crow Venerable's Adam's apple bobbed slightly, and a sense of creeping horror instantly washed over his entire body. Had Fang Chen already become this powerful? He suddenly had an absurd feeling of temporal disarray. Had he really only been confined on the heavenly mountain battlefield for 2 months, and not 2 years? In just 2 short months, Fang Chen had leapt from a nobody he could casually crush to a god of slaughter he had to treat with wary respect. When had the world changed so that nascent soul cultivators could freely slaughter spirit-severing cultivators? Before his confinement, spirit-severing cultivators were the supreme rulers of all things. On the ground, Fang Chen scolded Feng Yuanzong, You talk too much, step back. Then he fixed his cold gaze on Evil Crow Venerable and said deeply, Come on, then. Evil Crow Venerable shuddered all over. When he looked at Fang Chen again, the surging killing intent in his eyes ebbed like the tide. He no longer dared to be the slightest bit reckless. Killing a venerable heart, karma might have been a stroke of luck. Then what about killing a 2-star Giant King? Or the Dharmaka, a stage giant that raised half of heaven's remnant city? Yet he was the one calling for slaughter, and now he's the one backing down. How awkward would that be? He glanced sideways at Venerable Heart Demon, giving him a meaningful look, hoping that he would lend a hand so he could back down gracefully. Venerable Heart Demon crossed his arms and said with a mocking smile, I want to heed advice. You told me not to interfere, so I won't. Go ahead, fight to your heart's content. I swear, even if I die, I won't lift a finger. Venerable Evil Crow felt like cursing his own mother. He finally understood why Venerable Heart Demon, the Bodhisattva, and Zhang Wuya had all refrained from stopping him. It wasn't out of fear of him. It was because these fellows were all waiting to see him make a fool of himself. Now, with no one to mediate, he had no choice but to brace himself and find a way to back down on his own. He coughed dryly and said with embarrassment, Cough, fellow Taoist Fang, with the great battle imminent, let's stop at the point of intent and leave it at that. Fang Chen sneered with utter disdain, You spineless old wretch who only bullies the weak. Next time you try to bully someone, open your eyes wide first. Venerable Evil Crow's aged face turned blue, then red in succession. The indignation in his heart swelled to the bursting point. But the situation was stronger than him. He could only pretend not to hear and slink back to the great Yin sect disciples, venting all his fury on them. Look at yourselves. 2 whole months, and have you made any progress at all? Then he pointed at Feng Yuanzong. Feng Yuanzong, you are still a 3. Aperture, nascent soul. Are you worthy of your teacher? Feng Yuanzong scratched his head and said simply, Venerable, I was at 2 apertures nascent soul before. Thanks to sect leader Fang's blessing, I advanced by 1 minor realm. Venerable Evil Crow's expression froze. He then snorted heavily, I wasn't talking about you, what are you so excited for? I'm talking to you, Elder Chen, why do you only have 2 corpse bags left? Under my guidance before, you had 9, how come your cultivation has regressed? Elder Chen replied sheepishly, reporting to Venerable, the previous Yin corpses were all low, level 1s from 3, aperture nascent souls. Thanks to sect leader Fang's fortune, he shared with us methods of refining and controlling Yin corpses, so everyone switched to higher, grade 1s. Those low-level ones were left unwanted. Venerable Evil Crow was so choked with fury, he couldn't utter a single word. He looked at Elder Chen, then at the other elders. Without exception, all had upgraded their arsenals. The ordinary disciples also reaped their own gains. Either their cultivation had deepened, or their techniques had advanced greatly. Far better than when he presided over the great Yin sect. Venerable Evil Crow's face could no longer hold. He shouted in a deep voice, Forget the past. From now on, the entire sect will follow my orders. When I say attack, you attack. When I say retreat, you retreat. We must enforce strict obedience. Do you understand? His voice rang with authority. But the disciples of the great Yin sect remained silent, not responding. Venerable Evil Crow flew into a rage. Are you all deaf? The crowd's bodies swayed under the shock, and Feng Yuanzong had no choice but to brace himself and say, Venerable, sect leader Fang hasn't given the word yet. Venerable Evil Crow could hardly believe his own ears. Did this mean they only acknowledged Fang Chen, and not him, the god transformation, Venerable, anchoring the great Yin sect? His gaze was terrifyingly grim as he said, word by word, say that again. Feng Yuanzong suddenly felt as if his body were being crushed by a mountain 10,000 zhang tall, on the verge of falling apart with excruciating pain. Then came a harsh tearing sound like ripping silk. A divine rainbow of 3 colors tore through the air, carrying unparalleled might as it slashed toward Venerable Evil Crow. The latter's expression drastically changed. He hastily teleported away to dodge. Looking back, he saw that Fang Chen had controlled the sword formation to rush before Feng Yuanzong, patting his shoulder and saying, It was not in vain that this sect leader urged you all, follow me, and you will not be short of benefits. Venerable Evil Crow trembled with rage, roaring harshly, Fang Chen, do you intend to outright use my great Yin sect? Fang Chen gave him a sidelong glance and said flatly, Can't you tell? The great Yin sect prefers to be under my leadership. Go cool off somewhere else. Venerable Evil Crow's eyes blazed with fury. The great Yin sect was the fruit of his years of hard work, and even more his foundation. How could it be taken away? He glared at Feng Yuanzong and the others, threatening sharply, Think it through clearly. Will you follow me, or follow Fang Chen? No matter what, he was still the god transformation venerable of the great Yin sect, the one who could truly shelter them on the battlefield. In contrast, Fang Chen couldn't even protect his own heavenly secret pavilion fast enough. How could he bother with them? Fang Chen let out a light heh. With a casual wave, he tossed 2 jade bottles to Feng Yuanzong. He said calmly, Inside are 50 pills each of void, returning pills and heavenly garment divine water. Distribute them to everyone. Keep the surplus for yourself. During the Great War, give them to anyone in need. If it's not enough, come ask me for more. Feng Yuanzong caught the jade bottles, a bit perplexed. He was still young and didn't know much about spirit pills. He was completely unfamiliar with void-returning pills and heavenly garment divine water, unaware of their value. But the older generation at the nascent soul stage behind him cried out in unison with shock. Void-returning spirit pill, a 5th grade spirit pill that replenishes nascent soul power. That's a top grade great pill from the pill continent itself. Wait, heavenly garment divine water, isn't this the best healing medicine of our Taicang Grand State? It has the heaven-defying effect of regrowing flesh on white bones. These are all top-tier spirit pills that even 10,000 gold pieces can hardly buy. Ever since the news of the ancient giant's descent spread, the pill continent stopped selling these pills to outsiders. Unless one had extraordinary means, it was impossible to obtain them. Sect leader Fang just giving out 50 of each like that. This gesture truly stunned the disciples of the Great Yin sect. Feng Yuanzong finally realized the heaven-defying nature of these pills. Overcome with emotion, holding the spirit pills, he knelt down on one knee. Sect leader Fang, we swear to follow you to the death. With these two heaven-defying great pills, they could fight again even after exhausting their strength. Even grievous injuries could be healed on the spot. On the battlefield, this was equivalent to a second life. Compared to Venerable Evil Crow's empty promises of protection, it was immeasurably better. He had indeed chosen the right thigh to cling to. Venerable Evil Crow's face went dark as he glared viciously at the Great Yin sect members. Feng Yuanzong gave a start and coughed dryly. Venerable, you are also our beloved Venerable. We would love to return to your embrace, but sect leader Fang has simply given us too much. Venerable Evil Crow was so angry he nearly spat blood, fuming. You had better look out for yourselves. Don't blame me for not saving you when you die on the battlefield. Fang Chen gave a soft heh and said indifferently, you'd better worry about yourself. A word of warning, don't blindly refine ancient giants into yin corpses. The Giant King has the ability to rebirth from a single drop of blood. Beware of backlash. That ancient giant he had used to exchange for Venerable Evil Crow's shifting stars technique should have already been refined into a yin corpse, right? That ancient giant had only survived 1,000 years by absorbing the essence blood of the coal race Giant King. Once the essence blood within it encounters the Giant King star, regeneration becomes possible. At that moment, a sudden strike against Venerable Evil Crow might catch him off guard, and he might not react in time. As much as he detested this fellow, he was still a god transformation venerable of Taicang Grand State. If he died, the core force resisting the ancient giants would lose a member. Thus, Fang Chen gave a kind warning. Venerable Evil Crow had lost more than enough face today. Why would he accept Fang Chen's good will now? He shot Fang Chen a cold glare and said grimly, mind your own business, HMPH. Then he flashed away to another place. Fang Chen said calmly, then take care of yourself. Venerable Heart Demon flew over, his eyes shining. Hey, lad, our relationship is pretty good, right? In the face of the great calamity, as a venerable, he understood even more clearly what void-returning pills and heavenly garment divine water signified. Each pill meant an extra chance for a disciple to survive. And if the disciples lived, the myriad tribulations sacred hall would still have a future. The Bodhisattva also stepped out from the giant Buddha's projection, approached with palms together, and said, Benefactor Fang, this humble monk would like to beg for alms. Fang Chen gave them both a withering look. Venerable Heart Demon had nearly cost him his life, and the Bodhisattva had just recently chased him all over the world, trying to convert him. And now they had the nerve to come talk about friendship and beg for alms. Still, Fang Chen gave both Venerable Heart Demon and the Bodhisattva 10 void-returning pills and heavenly garment divine water each. In his heart, he knew that with every extra ounce of strength, Taicang Grand State gained an extra measure of hope. Venerable Heart Demon and the Bodhisattva quickly accepted the goodwill, knowing that it was already good of Fang Chen to give them anything at all. How could they possibly complain it was too little? The disciples of Myriad Tribulations, Sacred Hall, and White Horse Temple all showed expressions of pride. They had a god transformation venerable and a bodhisattva personally asking for pills. Other sects didn't have that honor, especially the Three Purities Mountain and the Divine Movement sect, whose relationship with Fang Chen was rather discordant. Fang Chen had no intention of sharing with every sect. He had to prioritize his own people first. His piercing eyes swept over the assembly. Abruptly, he noticed the fire worship sect in the distance and realized that neither Fairy Kainlin nor Master Yunhuo had come. His brow furrowed. He stepped forward quickly and asked with concern, "Are my martial uncle and aunt well?" In truth, he had not heard from them in a long while. Since the founding of the Heavenly Mystery Pavilion, after they attended to lend their support, they had not been seen again. The fire worship sect master explained with a smile, "After Fairy Kainlin and Master Yunhuo received your dragon marrow seed, they went into seclusion to cultivate. They have just broken through, and their foundation is still unstable, so I arranged for them to remain guarding the sect." Fang Chen understood the implication immediately. The impending battle was one of dire peril, a brush with death. By keeping them at the sect, the fire worship sect master was in truth shielding them and indirectly selling Fang Chen a favor. Silently, he cupped his fist in a gesture of gratitude. Then he brought out 10 void, reversing spirit pills and the heavenly robe divine water, and gave them to the fire worship sect master. The fire worship sect master was overjoyed. He cupped his hands and said, "Thank you, fellow Taoist Fang." The heart demon venerable and the bodhisattva had to swallow their pride to get 20 pills, but the fire worship sect master, simply by taking care of Fairy Kainlin and Master Huo, also received 20. No wonder those two constantly spoke of Fang Chen as one who valued bonds and honor. Clutching the spirit pills, the fire worship sect master bowed deeply again, saying emotionally, "Thank you, fellow Taoist Fang." Fang Chen nodded faintly, then turned and walked toward the Jian clan. Jian Lanfang led the entire clan's nascent soul cultivators, arrayed in strict readiness. Even the few 9 orifice nascent souls had been knocked out and carried here, to show that the whole clan would join the fight. When it came to the Jian clan, Fang Chen was naturally not petty. He solemnly admonished clan leader Jian on the battlefield, "You must take care of yourselves." He took out 20 spirit pills and placed them in Jian Lanfang's hands. Jian Lanfang's face was full of gratitude. He turned around and yanked Jian Linyuan over, scolding with a smile, "Brat, what are you standing there dazed for? Senior Fang did this for your sake. Why not thank him properly?" His words were harsh, but his eyes brimmed with pride. He had never been optimistic about this junior clansman. His talent was unremarkable, and he was not of the direct bloodline. Yet who could have foreseen that he would forge such a bond with Fang Chen so early? Now, thanks to that friendship, they had received a full 20 of these precious treasure pills. If the Jian clan emerged from this alive, Jian Linyuan would have earned at least 20% of the credit. Jian Linyuan cupped his hands and said, "Senior Fang, words cannot express my gratitude for such great kindness. Allow me to marry my sister to you." Fang Chen kicked him in annoyance and said with a laugh, "Next time, I'll gift your sister an even more powerful hammer." From afar, Jian Linyu watched them banter and sighed. Jian Weishuang and her brother are truly blessed. They befriended Fang Chen before he attained the Tao. If they survive this war, and Fang Chen survives as well, the Jian clan will undoubtedly push them to the core of the family. After distributing the spirit pills to the Jian clan, Fang Chen next approached the members of the Astral Observatory. Fang Chen once again gave a batch of spirit pills to the Astral Observatory without a hint of miserliness. 1 pill per person, and for Bai Xin, he offered an extra 2. Fang Chen looked at Bai Xin, clad in silver, white soft armor, her hair coiled up with 2 locks of fine hair falling by her ears. His voice was low and solemn. "When the great battle comes, protect yourself." Such a person so brimming with righteous spirit, if she perished on the battlefield, his regret would be boundless. Master Liu rushed over in a single stride, glared warily at Fang Chen, and demanded, "What are you doing? Why give her 2 separately? What are your intentions?" Master Liu turned to Bai Xin and said, "Commander Bai, as the saying goes, one who pays court for no reason must have ulterior motives. Don't be deceived by this fellow's petty favors. He's a master at flirting with women. You mustn't fall for it." Fang Chen's mouth twitched. This old man, now that he has a daughter, forgets his old bosom friend who once shared everything with him, treats him like a thief to be watched. Bai Xin reached out and accepted the 2 spirit pills. In her usually expressionless eyes, a faint trace of a smile quietly surfaced. She said softly, "Thank you. You take care as well." Compared to her former complete emotionlessness, she was growing more and more human. Even though it was only toward Fang Chen, the change was unmistakable. Fang Chen nodded slightly, then turned and rolled his eyes at Master Liu Dao, who was watching him like a hawk, and said irritably, "As for you, the sooner you die, the sooner you can transcend." Master Liu Dao puffed his beard and glared, snorting angrily, "You brat, I won't die before you do." Both their destinies were marked by death. It was truly hard to say who would go first. Finally, Fang Chen returned to the group from the Heavenly Mystery Pavilion. Since they already had the void-reversing spirit pills, Fang Chen distributed one portion of Heavenly Robe Divine Water to each of them. Gu Zinner watched with her heart bleeding. Fang Chen was really giving away the Heavenly Robe Divine Water for free. The 10 portions of Heavenly Robe Divine Water she had hoarded were now all stuck in her hands. She pulled out a black notebook and scribbled down a string of names, gritting her silver teeth and saying hatefully, "Damn Fang Chen, stinking Fang Chen, you've ruined me. I swear I'll never live under the same sky as you." After distributing the spirit pills, Fang Chen thought for a moment and then brought out the sage crystal mold. This incomparably holy crystal, capable of reverting the ancient giants, was something Fang Chen had not forgotten. According to his intelligence, out of the 1,000 ancient giants, fully half had been transformed from the Asura race. If in the great battle they could revert that portion of ancient giants back into the Asura race, the pressure would drop dramatically. Regrettably, there was only one crystal, and it couldn't cover everyone. He could only leave it for the Heavenly Mystery Pavilion members, to be used in a desperate moment. If cornered by an ancient giant, they could try sprinkling this on its body. If that giant happened to have been transformed from an Asura, perhaps it would cease attacking. With this in mind, he crushed the crystal into powder with his 5 fingers and distributed it to everyone in the Heavenly Mystery Pavilion. It could be considered a final life-saving item for them. Next, Fang Chen took out the soul crystal and the spatial mirror. Inside the soul crystal were the souls of Jiao Huangyan and Xuanxing. One was a former member of the White Bone Alliance, the other a protector of Sanking Mountain. Fang Chen opened the soul crystal and said calmly, "Let bygones be bygones. Today I release you. Go find bodies on your own and seize them for rebirth. If you can lend a hand in fighting the ancient giants, that would be best. If not, you are free to go." Compared to a world-ending enemy like the ancient giants, the grudges between him and these two seemed utterly trivial. Jiao Huangyan cupped his hands and sighed, "Thank you, fellow Taoist Fang, for still granting me a path to live. I have done many bad things in the past, but now with the great catastrophe looming, I will atone by achieving merit and expiating my past sins." With that, he flashed into the void and vanished. Xuanxing also let out a soft sigh, cupped his hands and said, "When the lips are gone, the teeth will feel cold. If the central planes are destroyed, how can a remnant soul like me find support? Let my remnant soul burn out on the battlefield." Then he too plunged into the void. Once the Great War begins, many will surely fall. They will not lack suitable bodies for possession. After releasing them, Fang Chen poured out 2 more people from the spatial mirror. One was the new Taoist leader of Sanking Mountain, Master Xuanyi. His physical body was still intact, and his cultivation remained. Fang Chen released the restraints on him and said calmly, "When I imprisoned you, I said I would not kill you, but give you a chance to die on the battlefield. Now I keep my promise." Master Xuanyi looked at Fang Chen with a complicated expression. As the dignified Taoist leader of Sanking Mountain, being imprisoned by Fang Chen had initially filled him with bitter hatred. Yet when he witnessed with his own eyes Fang Chen in the celestial realm, willing to stay behind to fight against the immaculate Great Venerable and the 5-star giant king in Ord, to save the star, Abyss Great Venerable. Deep in his heart, a sense of admiration could not help but arise. This was a man whom he and the entire Sanking Mountain both hated and respected. He shook out his numb arm and snorted coldly, "You're not the only one who can kill ancient giants. My Sanking Mountain can do the same." Then he turned and returned to the Sanking Mountain crowd, causing quite a stir. Finally, Fang Chen looked at the old woman lying on the ground, snoring soundly. She was also from Sanking Mountain, and was one of the 4 orifice nascent souls of Sanking Mountain, Elder Feng. She cultivated the path of slumber. Whenever her mad intent flared, it would cause surrounding living beings to fall into deep slumber. After thinking for a moment, Fang Chen decided to keep her by his side. The madness of this one was very troublesome, making no distinction between friend or foe. Since Fang Chen possessed the sage blood and the nascent soul wound, he was unaffected by her influence. Thus, he placed her back into the spatial mirror. Fang Chen let out a long, turbid breath and sighed softly, "Ha." At this point, all the preparations made for the ancient giants had been fulfilled. All that remained was to await the descent of the ancient giants. The Grand Libationer's figure shot forth, soaring straight into the clouds. Bai Xin, Taoist Master of 6 Paths, and the other members of the Imperial Observatory all followed closely at his side. He scanned the crowd, then suddenly cupped his hands in salute and bowed deeply to everyone. His deep voice carried a boundless tragic grandeur. I entrust Taicang Grand State to all of you. Everyone's hearts jolted. They all bowed deeply in return. Everyone understood. The decisive battle that would determine life and death had finally arrived. The Grand Libationer remained in his deep bow for a long time before slowly straightening up. He waved the horsetail whisk in his hand toward the direction of the Imperial Observatory from afar. In an instant, a vast and unparalleled spatial fluctuation radiated from the depths of the Imperial Observatory, sweeping in all directions. The state-level teleportation array shut down once more. This meant that Taicang Grand State would receive no further reinforcements from outside. They had no retreat. They could only fight with everything they had. Everyone's gaze was fixed dead on the depths of the Forbidden Zone, on that pitch black pillar of light that pierced the heavens. Fang Chen couldn't help but take a deep breath, his vision locked onto the sky connecting black pillar. The entire world gradually fell silent, like the final deathly stillness before a storm. Heavenly Realm, Black Sun Royal Court. A full 1,000 adult ancient giants stood in orderly ranks before the tent of the 5-star giant king. They carried brand new spiked clubs on their shoulders, with several blood-stained sacks hanging from their waists. Those sacks contained the corpses of Asura clansmen of the Heavenly Realm, serving as their rations for the expedition to the Middle Plane. Once these rations were consumed, it would be the turn of the myriad living beings of the Middle Plane. Outside the tent also stood Lu Zhu. She kept her head deeply bowed, her heart uneasy, her red lips tightly pursed, awaiting the 5-star giant king's punishment. Even if she could preserve her life, she feared she would not escape a death sentence. If her luck was worse, she might be directly thrown into the blood pool and brutally transformed alive into a new giant king. Lu Zhu raised the severed head in her hands high and reported in a trembling voice, reporting to the Black Sun King, your subordinate has successfully slain the venerable mind, Sin. Here is his head. After speaking, she dared not even breathe heavily, only able to wait silently for the 5-star giant king's judgment. Relying on her intuition, she clearly sensed a gaze shooting from within the tent. That gaze was so heavy it seemed substantial, making her whole body tremble uncontrollably, as if her frame would shatter in the next instant. Her heart pounded wildly, almost leaping out of her throat. The 5-star giant king had indeed seen through everything long ago, and was now preparing to kill her. But just as Lu Zhu was in terror, that annihilating, oppressive gaze from the tent suddenly withdrew. Then a rough yet calm voice drifted out, "It's good that you have returned." With a loud crash, the tent flap was flung open. The enormous figure, towering 30 zhang tall, with golden skin and 5 stars branded on his forehead, was fully revealed. He was none other than the long, unseen ruler of the Black Sun Royal Court, the 5-star giant king. His enormous golden vertical eye calmly regarded Lu Zhu, without joy or anger. Lu Zhu's heart almost leaped to her throat. She forcefully suppressed her trembling and respectfully presented the head. Black Sun King, this is the head of venerable mind, Sin. The Black Sun King merely swept his gaze over it and said deeply, so it was he who could move the heaven, connecting Black Pillar. As long as he's dead, it's good indeed. Before the words finished, the head suddenly exploded, turning into a spray of crimson bloody froth that splattered all over Lu Zhu. Lu Zhu's heart jolted violently, and she hurriedly added, "The great scourge of our heavenly realm has been eliminated. There will be no further obstacles to occupying the lower realm." The Black Sun King fixed his gaze on Lu Zhu and said casually, "You've worked hard. Where does the heaven, connecting Black Pillar, connect to in the Middle Plane now?" Lu Zhu quietly breathed a sigh of relief. The Grand Libationer had long anticipated that the Black Sun King would ask this, so he had taught her the response in advance. She immediately answered truthfully, reporting to the Black Sun King, the heaven, connecting Black Pillar has landed in the heartland of the Middle Plane, in the Calamity Forbidden Zone. The Black Sun King narrowed his eyes slightly, his gaze like blades and swords, fixing on Lu Zhu for 3 full breaths. After 3 breaths, the edge in his eyes slowly softened. As expected, Taicang Grand State indeed sent the heaven, connecting Black Pillar there, preparing to wait at ease for the weary. He slowly gazed into the distance, a cruel arc curling at the corner of his mouth. "Very well, this king shall play with you to the fullest." Doubt secretly arose in Lu Zhu's heart. Could it be that the Black Sun King knew of the Calamity Forbidden Zone's existence? Yet why was he so familiar with Taicang Grand State? Lu Zhu had personally been to Taicang Grand State, and only learned of this place's true roots from the Grand Libationer's own mouth. The Black Sun King expressionlessly instructed, "Lu Zhu, you will remain in the heavenly realm and guard the Black Sun royal court, together with the underage clansmen." Lu Zhu opened her mouth, wanting to say something but stopping. The Black Sun King had personally promised that if she brought back the head of Venerable Mind, Sin, he would return her soul to her. But when the words reached her lips, she forcefully swallowed them back, and ultimately dared not speak. Her intuition clearly told her that the Black Sun King was suspecting her. In the end, she only responded in a low voice, "Yes, Black Sun King." Only then did the Black Sun King put his hands behind his back and slowly survey the murderous ancient giants before him. The brilliant light in his enormous vertical eye abruptly flared. 1,000 years, we can finally descend upon that legendary land once more. There they have the freshest blood of the 3 realms, the plumpest flesh and blood, and the craftiest, most powerful prey. You are fortunate to be born in this era, fortunate to follow this king in conquering Taicang Grand State, in hunting those top-tier living beings. This is your supreme honor. The ancient giants raised their spiked clubs one after another, their enormous vertical eyes bursting with greedy, excited light. They threw their heads back and let out resounding heaven, shaking roars, each louder than the last. Follow the Black Sun King, conquer Taicang Grand State. Follow the Black Sun King, conquer Taicang Grand State. Follow the Black Sun King, conquer Taicang Grand State. The roars shook the royal court massively, shattered the white clouds in the sky, and caused the entire world of the Black Sun royal court to tremble. In this moment, the predatory ferocity deeply branded into their souls was completely ignited. The Black Sun King waved his large hand. 9 primordial fierce beasts immediately pulled an ancient war chariot, treading through clouds and fog, and kneeling reverently before him. The Black Sun King stepped onto the chariot, raised his right hand high, and with a gentle wave toward the direction of the heaven, connecting black pillar, bellowed, "Follow me, descend upon Taicang." Rumble! The 1,000-odd ancient giants strode forward like towering mountains, closely following the chariot in a mighty march. Their heavy footsteps pounded the world with a continuous rumble, kicking up sky, filling dust. The heaven, startling killing intent that burst forth, surged straight to the heavens, reaching a level that shook the very earth and skies. Even if 10 giant kings joined forces, they would be absolutely no match for it. Watching their departing figures, a tremendous sense of despair surged in Lu Zhu's heart. "Fang Chen, may the high heavens protect you." In her mind, she could not help but envision the blood-soaked ruins of Taicang Grand State. A doomsday vision emerged of a human casually tossed into an ancient giant's mouth, chewed and swallowed. Unless the high heavens manifested a miracle, she truly could not think of any hope for Taicang Grand State to win. Whoosh! Just at that moment, a sneaky figure suddenly slipped out from the armory. Lu Zhu darted closer and focused her gaze. It turned out to be a shifty-eyed, emaciated human youth. The youth was clutching a stone platform densely covered in yin energy, fleeing for his life. Lu Zhu's heart tightened. Under the Black Sun King's very nose, a human has infiltrated the armory. How is this possible? Immediately, a thought flashed in her mind, also that item he stole. Could it be that supreme treasure capable of causing the extinction of the ancient giants? She subconsciously moved to give chase, but in a change of thought, she halted. She silently looked around, and seeing that the ancient giants left to guard the tribe were completely unaware, she smoothly stopped and feigned ignorance. She only watched the direction in which the human youth fled out of the corner of her eye, a faint glimmer of hope quietly rising in her gaze. "Do your best. I hope this item can truly bring a sliver of a turning point to your Taicang Grand State." At the same time, in an abandoned Asura clan stockade, an old Asura with sharp eyes and a shrewd face had cornered another Asura clansman against a wall. That Asura clansman begged piteously, "Chieftain Ming Yi, spare me." This old Asura was none other than the master of Black Cloud Stockade, Ming Yi. Back then, he deceived Fang Chen and others into heading to the treasury of the Black Sun Royal Court, then used thunderous means to open the secret chamber, seized the bloodthirsty wide ghost eye, and vanished without a trace thereafter. Ming Yi stared coldly at the other party, his voice icy. "When you willingly sacrificed your hidden clansmen to the ancient giants, just to escape death during the great hunt, did you ever imagine you'd face such a day yourself?" He shook his head slightly, opened his palm, and a ferociously evil red eye immediately emerged. "Bloodthirsty ghost eye, only the blood of the last Asura race is missing." His gaze darkened, and his tone turned ominous. "Then I'll use your blood to pave my path as the Asura king." With those words, he flicked his finger. The bloodthirsty ghost eye instantly turned into a crimson afterimage and shot straight into the opponent's chest. The Asura immediately let out a pained scream. But the screaming did not last long. For after just 10 breaths, he turned into a desiccated corpse, skin and bones, with not a single drop of blood left in his body. Afterwards, the bloodthirsty ghost eye eerily wormed its way out. Having absorbed the essence of 10 kinds of Asura blood, it was now slowly melting into a blood, red crown, drifting towards Mingyi. Central Plains, Taicang Grand Prefecture. Gale winds howled, yellow sand filled the sky. Everyone's breathing gradually became heavy and rapid, because the sky above their heads was faintly turning red, like a basin of thick blood being slowly poured into a clear pond. As time passed breath by breath, that bloodstain grew deeper and heavier. This scene was familiar to all. A month ago, during the ancient giant's great hunt, the heavens and earth had likewise produced such a phenomenon, and now it was finally Taicang Grand Prefecture's turn. The ancient giants were descending. The Grand Libationer looked up at the firmament, and suddenly a premonition struck him. He abruptly raised his horsetail whisk and slashed it down towards the sky. In an instant, the sky was forcibly torn open with a crack. A surge of Pyokai rushed in from outside and coalesced in midair into 9 vast images. One of them was Taicang Grand Prefecture. It depicted the Grand Libationer leading all living beings in a bloody battle at the Calamity, overcoming forbidden ground. The remaining 8 were undoubtedly the battle states of the other 8 prefectures. Fang Chen swept his gaze over them and saw many familiar figures. In the Great Wilderness Prefecture, the female Grand Libationer, who loved wine like life itself, was leading a group of demonic cultivators in tightly encircling a sky-reaching black pillar. In the Primordial Chaos Prefecture, the romantic and passionate young female Grand Libationer, leading Star Abyss, Great Venerable, and other Confucian cultivators, gazed up at the sky-reaching black pillar above them. In the returning Void Prefecture, beside the tearful Grand Libationer, stood Wang Qing, Yalao, and Yu Mingzhu. Starry Mountain Lord and Liu Ruyan were also at the front line. In the Myriad Demon Grand Prefecture, to the left and right of the laughter, loving Grand Libationer stood Golden Scale Great Venerable, as well as the 2 little girls Lingshu and Lialai. Apart from that, he also saw Deputy Palace Master Yu of Alchemy Prefecture, saw Iceheart Great Venerable of Holy Spirit Prefecture, and even saw the battle formations of Divine Weapon Prefecture. Only one prefecture's image remained blurry throughout, impossible to discern. That was Heaven Prefecture. For some reason, not even the Grand Libationer could capture any information from Heaven Prefecture. But that no longer mattered, because the sky, reaching black pillar in the Great Wilderness Prefecture, was shaking violently. Something was descending along that sky, reaching black pillar, plummeting from the heavens and rapidly approaching the earth. The people of Great Wilderness Prefecture immediately felt as though faced with a formidable foe. Desireless Venerable and Red Dust Venerable took the lead, stepping forth together to shield all living beings. Grave expressions covered both their faces. Suddenly, a shower of blood rained down along the sky, reaching black pillar, congealing in the blink of an eye into a pool of thick, viscous blood. Immediately after, the blood surged rapidly and swiftly coalesced into a form. It was a terrifying giant, 20 zhang in height. Its skin was a pale cyan, and on its forehead were emblazoned 3 red stars. This was a 3-star giant king. It suddenly spread its arms wide, greedily inhaling the air of the Central Plains. Its enormous vertical eye gleamed with intense excitement, and it threw back its head and let out a sky-shaking howl. Central Plains, I have finally come.